The second I went broke, my girlfriend dumped me. That same night, I unlocked a cashback system that could triple every eligible dollar I spent on gorgeous, thick women. I tested it with a $7,000 designer bag, and the moment my professor accepted it, $21,000 hit my account. I was Beau Langley, a 20-year-old student at Brighton State University in Clearwater, North Carolina. My family's company had just collapsed, and creditors were already circling my parents. The first purchase was a tutorial exception. After that, an adult woman needed at least 60 affinity and had to accept what I bought. Qualifying spending came back at 3 times the price. Separate debt and business missions could use different multipliers. That left one question. Could I scale the rule fast enough to save my parents before creditors took the rest? Professor Elowen Ashmore held the bag in her apartment like it might explode. She taught business at Brighton State, which made my receipt lie especially smart. This costs more than my car, Elowen warned. I tapped the fake label. Knockoff. Very committed. She accepted it. My phone confirmed the $21,000 return. That alert felt like oxygen because my mother was already choosing an heirloom to sell. Elowen caught my expression. Did your lie make you emotional? The craftsmanship moved me. Her affinity rose. Then Brenly Ashmore, Elowen's protective sister, walked in, saw us standing too close, and pointed at the door. Tutorial over. The money glitch had worked exactly once. My first witness evicted me. Look, buying my professor a $7,000 bag was insane. I needed proof. To understand why $21,000 mattered that much, go back one day. My family's accounts had just frozen, and every fake friend started checking the price tag on me. Before the collapse, I was the shameless rich kid who paid for gaming rooms, dinners, and bad weekends. When the accounts froze, the invitations vanished. One friend moved a party. Another billed me for snacks I had bought him. Callista Redmond finished the job. My girlfriend became my ex before lunch. She met me outside the student center wearing my designer gift beside an older sponsor gripping a luxury car key. Your family is finished, Callista told me. There was never love. You paid. I stayed. Now you can't. I asked for the bags back. She refused and told the nearby students my father had failed. Her sponsor ordered me to leave with dignity. So I used zero shame. I told her sponsor Callista kept a police costume in her closet and made me call her Officer Redmond. The students cracked first. His smile died second. Callista dragged him toward the car before I reached a second example. Petty, effective, and deserved. I walked away furious. The perfect life system appeared over the sidewalk with one tutorial. Spend on an adult woman who willingly accepted the benefit, receive 3 times the price. I bought Elowen's bag. By that evening, I was back on campus with $21,000 and a rule I needed to test again. Kaya Norwood walked past the library at the exact right time. Kaya was one of the prettiest women on campus, and she knew how to make eye contact feel like a challenge. The system placed a glowing number over her shoulder. Affinity, 72, high enough. Her black-haired roommate stepped between us before I finished saying hello. Kaya, campus rumor says he went broke yesterday. Kaya looked me over. Yesterday was busy. I survived, I told her. Celebrate with sushi. Her roommate folded her arms. With what money? I checked my balance. The restaurant accepts numbers. I still have those. Kaya laughed, glanced at her roommate, and agreed. Curiosity and rebellion looked like a team. At the sushi restaurant, Kaya watched me like I was an exam question with suspiciously nice shoes. So, she began, are you actually broke? I was broke exactly once. I didn't enjoy it. Her affinity dropped 2 points. Too cocky. I leaned back. My family's company failed. My parents are still dealing with the debt. I'm handling what I can. The number climbed 3. I paid the bill. The return hit my account before the server reached the next table. Kaya saw my phone light up. The server saw the tip. Neither saw the system. The rule worked twice. There it was. The system gave me the score, but I still had to stop talking like an idiot. Kaya rested her chin on one hand. You sound calmer than a man whose life exploded yesterday. Panic is ugly on me. You'd complain. I might enjoy it. Kaya smiled at our first real volley, and her affinity rose again. After dinner, Kaya pulled me into Meridian Row Mall and watched my face under luxury lighting. Hint taken. The system liked expensive environments, and Kaya looked dangerous under soft lighting. Then Callista walked out of a designer store with her replacement sponsor. Of course she did. Callista's gaze moved from me to Kaya, then down to our shopping bags. Her smile arrived sharp and late. Kaya, be careful, Callista called. He can't even afford lunch anymore. The sponsor laughed and asked whether I was carrying bags for tips. The system flashed a new mission. Humiliation objective. Destroy their public provider act. Mission spending qualifies for cashback. No failure penalty appeared. The reward was already enough. I turned to the clerk. She had heard the word broke and was already drifting toward a richer-looking couple. Bring every bag Kaya likes, I told her. The clerk paused. Callista laughed again. The sponsor told the clerk not to waste her time. Kaya tugged my sleeve. Beau, you don't have to prove anything. I'm proving the system has good taste. Pick a color. She stared at me, then pointed to one bag. I added 2 more, plus matching accessories. The clerk's caution became speed, and she stacked boxes on the counter while Callista's smile thinned. I swiped my card. Approved. The receipt printed long enough for the clerk to use both hands. A woman near the mirror stopped filming herself and angled her phone toward us. Kaya's roommate, who had followed from dinner, whispered, "Yesterday was very busy." Kaya's smile turned openly curious. The first clerk called over a senior associate to arrange delivery. The senior associate checked the paid status. Then she offered Kaya a private fitting room and asked whether we wanted the new collection held overnight. Callista stepped closer to the counter. "He is spending the last money his family has." Kaya looked at the boxes. "Then why does the clerk keep asking what else he wants?" The senior associate placed another catalog in front of me. The woman filming turned her camera toward Callista, and the clerk asked what else I wanted. The sponsor recovered by making the worst possible choice. He claimed anyone could buy a few bags and challenged me to spend serious money. I let him finish. Then I asked the clerk to build a $100,000 package for Callista. The sponsor blinked. "Why would I buy that?" "Because you just called my purchase small. Match it." Callista turned toward him with sudden interest. The woman by the mirror kept recording. 2 sales associates slowed down behind the counter. He had invited witnesses. Beautiful. The sponsor slapped his card onto the glass and told the clerk to run a smaller bundle first. The card failed. He blamed the terminal. The clerk tried again. Same result. His phone rang at a convenient volume. He answered before the screen even lit, announced an emergency meeting, and headed for the door. Callista grabbed his sleeve. "You said you were buying it." He shook her off. "This isn't the time." Callista stood between the unpaid boxes and the woman still recording. She called after him once. He did not turn around. The senior associate lifted the $100,000 package from her side of the counter. The rental luxury hero had built his whole personality around paying. One declined card removed the costume. Kaya covered a laugh with her hand. Her roommate looked at the failed terminal, then at my paid receipt, and whispered, "That comparison was violent." The first clerk straightened my boxes and asked whether I wanted private delivery. Another clerk stopped addressing Callista as ma'am, so I handed the purchases to Kaya. She pushed one box back. "This is too much." "Then keep the ones you like and donate the ugly one to your roommate." Her roommate hugged the box before Kaya could answer. "I accept this burden." Kaya rolled her eyes, then took the remaining bags. Her affinity jumped. My cashback arrived seconds later. Callista watched the alert hit my phone. She did not know the number, but she saw my smile. I gave her no speech. She had already heard the receipt printer. When I returned to the dorm, the fake friend committee had turned exclusion into live theater. Music shook the hallway. Somebody had wedged the common room door open so I could hear every invitation I had not received. One of the men who used to borrow my console raised his voice. "Keep the expensive drinks away from Beau. He might pawn the bottles." His friends laughed too hard, making sure I heard every word. I stepped inside, took one unopened bottle from the table, and read the price tag. "You bought the cheap version." The laughter broke in two. One guy checked the label. Another slid his own bottle behind a speaker. I set it down untouched. "Enjoy the bankruptcy party." I already upgraded venues. A roommate caught me in the hall and whispered that Zane Jarrow was bragging about his new car. Zane was our campus peacock, the kind of man who treated a parking space like a throne. He had also announced that Kaya would be riding with him soon. I looked at the system's new vehicle balance. "Tell Zane congratulations," I said. "He has tonight." The party noise followed me downstairs, but it no longer sounded like rejection. It sounded like a room full of people who had made one bet and refused to check the odds. The mall money gave me one real option, so I drove straight to my parents' house before Judd could take anything. Night had fallen over my parents' house in Clearwater, North Carolina, when I walked in. My mother stood beside the dining table holding the last pieces of our family jewelry. She had already sold part of the collection to cover payroll and groceries. These pieces were what remained. My father sat across from Judd Langley, the cousin demanding $30,000 by morning. Judd had once eaten holiday dinners in that room and praised Dad for helping the whole family. Now he kept his coat on, as if poverty might stain him. He tapped the table with one thick finger. The deadline passed. Sell the jewelry or sign the car over. Dad reminded him that our family had carried his business through 2 bad years. Judd checked his watch. That was then. "This is debt." My mother tightened her grip on the jewelry box. That tiny movement loaded the whole room. She lowered her eyes, and Dad looked 10 years older than he had the week before. Every joke left me. I asked Judd for the account number. He snorted. "With what money? You people really need a second question." A new system prompt appeared. Debt mission. Eligible family debt payments returned 2 times the amount. Restricted reward, $150,000 for a vehicle purchase. I transferred $30,000. Judd's phone chimed first. Dad's phone chimed next. My mother set the jewelry down with both hands. Judd checked the transfer twice. Where did you get this? Dad took the phone from him and confirmed the account number himself. Mom opened the jewelry box, counted every piece, and closed it again. Two separate reactions. One payment had returned money to Judd and control to my parents. Old cryptocurrency. I finally sold it. That became my public cover story. It was simple, boring, and difficult to argue with while the money sat in his account. Judd tried to recover his authority. Your family still owes far more than this. Dad rose before I could answer. You were paid. Leave. My mother opened the front door. Judd looked from the transfer to the jewelry he no longer controlled. Then he walked out carrying nothing except the tone he had arrived with. The door shut. Dad gripped my shoulder. Mom finally breathed. She slid the jewelry box away from the edge of the table and closed the lid. Dad looked at my phone, then at me, as if he was meeting the adult version of his son several years early. I let myself feel that one. Then Dad told me the failed company still owed tens of millions. He showed me the creditor list on his phone. Paying Judd had saved the room, not the company. Several names were already marked urgent. Mom kept one hand on the closed jewelry box. Dad kept the other on my shoulder. We had one warm minute before the next number arrived. My phone vibrated again. Debt mission completed. $60,000 returned. Vehicle-only fund activated. $150,000. I had saved the heirlooms. I had barely touched the mountain. But by morning, everybody on campus would still call me broke. The system had handed me a steering wheel while campus still believed the comeback was one lucky receipt. That belief had one night left. Paying Judd felt huge until Dad reminded me that the company debt could swallow $60,000 without chewing. Judd was gone, but the company still owed tens of millions. Dad walked me to the front porch before sunrise. He had spent years paying everybody else's bills, so asking his 20-year-old son for cash looked physically painful. He showed me a list of what remained. Suppliers, equipment loans, personal guarantees, former partners who had stopped answering. The urgent $30,000 had been one hand around our neck. The company debt was the whole crowd. I need enough to keep the utilities and insurance current, he told me. A few thousand. I'll repay you. Behind him, Mom was returning the jewelry to a locked cabinet. She paused when Dad said, repay! Neither of them had adjusted to needing me yet. I transferred it before he finished. Dad stared at the alert. You didn't even ask how much. You raised me. That invoice is probably worse. He laughed once, rough and tired. Then he made me promise the cryptocurrency story was real. I promised with the confidence of a man whose actual explanation involved floating affinity numbers. The vehicle fund remained locked at $150,000. I could not use a cent for the company debt. That restriction was annoying, but it also gave me a clean next move. Zane had one night with his new car. The next afternoon at Brighton State, I found Elowen outside the business building. She carried a stack of folders against her chest and wore the same careful expression she used before grating somebody into sadness. Her affinity had risen since the bag. I offered dinner. Elowen glanced toward the parking lot. Is this another tutorial? Advanced coursework. There may be dessert. She almost agreed. Then Brenly stepped from behind a column with 2 coffees and the stare of a security camera that had developed personal hatred. Professor-student dinner? Brenly asked. Elowen adjusted the folders. We were discussing coursework. Brenly handed her a coffee. At a restaurant. At night? With dessert. I respected the prosecution and retreated. That failed plan reminded me of the vehicle fund, so I called Kaya. She answered on the second ring. Do I need formal clothes? Kaya asked. Only if buying a car became a wedding while I was asleep. Her roommate shouted from the background. Clear the dorm anyway. He spends strangely. Kaya covered the phone. Ignore her. What kind of car? One that makes Zane stop explaining his parking spot. She arrived 20 minutes later in a fitted jacket and high boots. I missed the first thing she said. In my defense, those boots were doing serious work. Kaya caught me looking. You called me for financial advice? I called you because the system likes good company. The advice is a bonus. She did not know which system I meant. She still smiled. At the luxury dealership, Chad Norton intercepted us before we reached the M9 luxury SUV. Chad had known Kaya in school and had apparently spent the years since perfecting a smile that only worked near commission. He shook Kaya's hand first. Kaya, you look incredible. I didn't know you were shopping today. She pointed at me. I'm with Beau. Chad finally looked over. The bankruptcy rumor reached his eyes before recognition did. Right, he said. We have some used options outside. You already see his mistake. He started flirting before checking who was buying. Kaya did not move. We came for the M9. Chad gave her the patient smile men use when they think a woman has misunderstood a price tag. Kaya, that one starts around 90,000. Beau's situation changed. I know his situation better than you do, she answered. The receptionist looked up. Chad's coworker stopped pretending to organize brochures. Kaya had claimed my side before I spent $1 in that building. I asked for the M9 luxury SUV, priced around $90,000. Chad laughed. One nearby salesperson looked up. Another stopped typing. That model requires a serious deposit, Chad warned. I don't want to waste your time. He offered to show Kaya a smaller crossover under his own employee discount. The pitch had already abandoned me and become a date invitation with cup holders. Kaya tilted her head. Are you selling a car or applying for a problem? The coworker behind him coughed into his fist. Chad's ears turned red. You're safe, I told him. You're wasting yours. I asked for someone competent. Odette Corwin came over from the far desk. She was the dealership's top salesperson, 27, calm, and dressed like she had already closed 3 deals before lunch. I noticed her immediately. She noticed that I was looking and lifted one eyebrow. Are we shopping for the vehicle? Odette asked. Or are you evaluating the staff? Both. The vehicle is ahead. Kaya pinched my sleeve. Odette hid a smile and opened the M9. She explained the useful features in under a minute, then asked the only useful question. Do you want to test it or buy it? Buy it. The words reached 3 desks. Chad stepped back into the conversation. Beau, financing approval can take time. I gave Odette my identification and told her to charge the deposit immediately. The vehicle fund accepted the category. My phone confirmed the payment before Chad found another warning. Odette's tablet chimed. Chad leaned in and claimed the deposit could still reverse. Odette turned the tablet toward him and tapped the settled status. It cleared, she told him. You can read the word twice if that helps. Kaya made a small approving sound. I liked Odette immediately. Competence with a sharp edge is dangerous around me. The salesperson beside Chad leaned over to read the screen. A receptionist who had ignored us stood and offered coffee. Chad checked the amount, then checked my clothes, as if one of them had to be counterfeit. The dealership manager arrived with the key packet and asked whether I wanted the vehicle delivered to campus. Chad interrupted again and offered to handle the handoff. Odette closed the folder over his fingers. You decline the client. I'll finish my sale. The manager looked at Chad. The other salespeople looked at the manager. Nobody defended him. Full payment, Odette announced. No financing. Kaya rested one hand on the open door. Chad, weren't you showing us the used lot? He opened his mouth. Nothing useful arrived. Odette had the sale. Chad had the memory of handing it away. The dealership manager crossed the floor and congratulated Odette in front of him. Another salesperson whispered that the commission would cover several months of rent. Chad moved toward a customer who had just entered, but the customer had watched the whole thing and asked for Odette instead. I loved it. While Odette arranged delivery, she offered her direct number in case I needed service help. Kaya took the card first. I'll keep it, she told Odette. Beau loses things. Odette looked from Kaya to me. Does he? Constantly, Kaya answered. Usually his focus. I had become the disputed property in a sales office. The M9 was honestly less complicated. After the deposit, Kaya refused to go back to campus empty-handed. I spent about $12,000 on clothes, jewelry, and gifts she pretended not to want. At the first boutique, she put a bracelet back because of the price. I bought it after she turned away. The clerk fastened it around her wrist, and Kaya's affinity rose with the clasp. At the next boutique, she caught me adding shoes and threatened to leave. I asked whether she planned to walk out barefoot. The clerk laughed. Kaya kept the shoes and looked personally betrayed by both of us. You use money like a weapon, Kaya murmured, only against poor decision-making. That explains why you keep aiming at yourself. Fair hit. The cashback stacked behind the scenes. I watched my balance climb while Kaya watched the sales assistants carry packages. One assistant asked whether we were celebrating an anniversary. Kaya answered before I could. We're testing his impulse control. The assistant glanced at 6 boxes. How is it going? Catastrophically. At dinner, she leaned across the table. You keep spending like tomorrow offended you. Tomorrow has been talking reckless. Kaya's number climbed. I needed a clean answer about the rest of the night, so I used a simple code. Hot drink or cold drink afterward? I asked. Kaya narrowed her eyes. What does cold mean? I'd take you home, Kaya asked. And hot? We stay somewhere with room service. She stirred her glass slowly. That's the least subtle beverage menu in North Carolina. Subtlety lost funding. Kaya chose hot. At the hotel, I booked a private suite. The desk clerk recognized the dealership key packet and offered an upgrade. Kaya watched her change our room without being asked, then looked at me with a new kind of caution. Money had started changing rooms before I entered them. Inside the elevator, Kaya asked whether this was only another cashback test. I answered honestly, the system benefits. I still invited you because I wanted you here. She studied my face until the doors opened. Before the suite door closed, I asked her once more whether she was sure. Kaya took the key card from my hand. Beau, I understood the menu. I also understood you. She pulled me inside. Morning found her still beside me, with the room service tray untouched and her affinity higher. My balance sat around $375,000 after the cashback and vehicle purchase. That number felt ridiculous. Kaya sleeping beside me made it feel complicated. The system could multiply spending. It could not tell me what she would expect after sunrise. She wore my shirt while stealing fruit from the breakfast tray. So what am I supposed to tell my roommate? Tell her the dorm clearing forecast was accurate. Kaya threw a grape at me. It hit the wall. Terrible aim, excellent commitment. Then the perfect life system changed the game. A new prompt opened over the breakfast table. Perfect life expansion. Build legitimate income. Investment grant, $150,000. Deadline, 7 days. First approved business profits receive a 2x multiplier. The money could only enter a real business. Gifts, hotels, and cars no longer counted. Kaya saw my expression. Another emotional receipt? Worse. Homework. My phone rang before I could close the screen. Arlo Gresham, one of the few friends who had defended me after the bankruptcy, was raising money for a private bar. He needed about $100,000 from each serious partner, and everybody else wanted the upside without sharing the risk. His message included one line, "Wear something decent." Dax is already talking. I looked at the pile of new clothes beside the bed, then chose my oldest sweatshirt. If the room wanted a broke man, I could at least give them a clean first act. The system had given me 7 days. Arlo had given me a room full of men who still thought I was broke. By the next evening, the investment deadline and the broke roomer would be waiting at the same table. The investment deadline led me to a private bar where every man at the table had already decided my money was gone. Arlo Gresham had defended me when the bankruptcy rumor spread. That earned him more credit than the rest of the room combined. I arrived in my oldest sweatshirt and scuffed sneakers. Dax Pemberton, one of Arlo's loudest rich-looking friends, looked me over, laughed, and asked whether the dress code had become charitable. Arlo said wear something decent, I told him. You still came. The men around him laughed, but Dax kept watching for the fold that never came. I had brought a shovel for his ego. Odette sat beside Kurt Ingram, the man she was dating. That complicated the room before money even entered it. Kurt had one arm across the back of her chair and kept checking whether I looked at her. I did. Odette caught me and lifted her glass. The woman had sold me a $90,000 SUV without blinking. Professional competence was becoming a problem for me. Arlo opened the bar proposal. He needed about $360,000 total. Each serious partner would put in roughly $100,000 and share the risk. Dax immediately offered a loan instead. I'll lend you $30,000, Dax announced. Secured against your share, of course. Arlo asked whether Dax wanted the same protection if the bar succeeded. Dax smiled. Success is your problem. Repayment is mine. One man offered half the amount if Arlo guaranteed repayment personally. Another wanted ownership without responsibility. A third promised introductions, which is rich person language for absolutely nothing. You see the problem, they wanted Arlo's profit without sharing Arlo's risk. Odette watched the offers pile up and pulled her drink away from Kurt. Even she could hear the cowardice. A server waiting for our order glanced at Arlo, then at the men making rich noises around empty commitments. Arlo kept his voice steady. I asked for partners. Dax leaned back. You asked friends to fund another one of your experiments. Beau can't even cover dinner now. Arlo looked at him. Beau showed up. You only showed up to say no in person. Arlo had defended me while everybody else protected themselves. I asked one question. Can you run it? Arlo slid me the operating numbers and gave a blunt answer. He knew the neighborhood, had the license path, and had already found a manager. He needed capital and people willing to share the first loss. The plan had a location, an experienced manager, and the measurable opening date. The system accepted the business category. I transferred $100,000. Arlo's phone lit up on the table. He read the amount twice. Odette leaned forward. Kurt's arm dropped from her chair. Dax stopped smiling before anybody spoke. He sent it, Arlo announced. The man offering introductions suddenly remembered a call and answered his silent phone. The personal guarantee expert needed to check on a car that had not moved all evening. Another man left through the restroom and never returned, which raised questions about the building's exits. The server came back for our order and found half the chairs empty. She looked at Arlo's glowing phone, then at me. Did the meeting end? The courage portion did, Arlo answered. Dax stood last. I have to be up early. I checked the wall clock. It's 7:30. Very early. He left anyway. The room evacuation became its own business model. One transfer had produced 4 emergencies. Odette checked my face. You paid cash for the M9 and invested this much in a bar? Chad really didn't brief the market. Kurt turned on her. You knew he had money? Odette set down her glass. I sold him a car. That was my job. Kurt snapped. You should have told me. Kurt's real problem surfaced. Another man had money, so he blamed his girlfriend. Stable relationship architecture. After the parasites cleared out, Arlo and I reduced the plan to one question. Could he open fast enough to test the profit multiplier? We agreed on a theme, one experienced manager, and a hard cap on early spending. We settled the opening plan in one blunt exchange. Arlo shook my hand and promised results. The investment remained unproven. $100,000 had left my account, and the system would only multiply actual profit. The next afternoon, Odette asked me to meet near the dealership. I arrived just as Chet Ellsworth, her married boss, blocked her beside a restaurant entrance. Chet wore management confidence like cheap cologne. He reminded Odette that he controlled the best leads and weekend schedule. Then he offered dinner, private travel, and a promotion with an obvious price attached, herself. One dealership employee reached the entrance, heard Chet's tone, and stopped outside. Another pretended to search her purse. Their reactions showed Chet had done this before. Nobody wanted their commission touched next. Odette stepped away. I want to work, answered Chet. He moved closer. This is work. People who understand loyalty move up. Odette's face went flat. You mean people who tolerate you? The employee outside looked down quickly. Chet had just been insulted in front of his own staff, and entitlement does terrible things with an audience. Kurt arrived at the worst possible second. He saw Chet leaning over Odette, assumed the entire story, and punched him. Chet crashed into a planter. A hostess dropped a menu. Two dealership employees near the entrance backed away while pretending they had seen nothing. Kurt grabbed Odette's arm and demanded an explanation. She pulled free. You hit my boss before asking me one question. Chet came up swinging. The second punch caught Kurt's shoulder, and the restaurant entrance turned into a very expensive parking lot brawl. I stepped between Odette and the flailing men, took her by the hand, and led her to the M9. You're leaving? Kurt shouted. Odette looked back. Yes! With the man who asked what I wanted. Kurt flinched harder at that answer than at Chet's punch. Inside the SUV, she sat silent until the noise disappeared behind us. Then Odette told me she hated sales. She was good at it because she understood people, but Chet controlled commissions, schedules, and access. Her real dream was a small cafe where nobody could corner her beside a company car. The system still needed the rest of the investment grant deployed. I offered about $45,000 for the acquisition and opening reserve. Odette would manage the cafe for $4,500 a month, plus performance bonuses. If she built it well, we could discuss ownership and a car later. I also gave her one condition. She would choose the staff and run daily operations. I would approve major spending and stay out of the espresso machine unless invited. Odette looked through the windshield at the restaurant where Chet and Kurt were still shouting. You're offering me a company while those two are fighting over who controls me. I'm offering you the keys. Control comes with what you do next. She stared at me. You met me because I sold you an SUV? You also told Chad to read the word cleared twice. That showed character. Odette laughed despite herself. What do you get? She asked. A real business, a competent manager, and fewer terrible coffees? And nothing else? I looked at her. She held my gaze. I'm open to aggressive bonus negotiations, I said. Her affinity climbed into the 60s. Odette did not accept immediately. Good. A woman leaving one controlling man should not sprint into another contract because he had a nicer car. That night, I returned to Kaya's dorm smelling faintly like Odette's perfume. Kaya opened the door, leaned close once, and stepped back. Who is she? No greeting. Straight to chemical evidence. I told Kaya about the dealership meeting, the brawl, and every fact that affected us. She paced once across the room, then stopped beside the shopping bags I had bought her. Do you see the problem? Several. Two of them threw punches. Kaya pointed at the bags. You solve every problem by spending on a beautiful woman. Eventually, one of us becomes the problem. I heard more than a request for reassurance. Kaya was asking whether my spending had any human limit without knowing the system existed. She crossed her arms. You drove another beautiful woman away from her boyfriend. I spread my hands. Her boyfriend was busy fighting a married manager. I provided transportation. Kaya looked toward the parking lot. In a $90,000 SUV. Very civic-minded. Her jealousy was real, but so was her choice to keep listening. I asked what she wanted from me. Kaya stepped closer. Tonight? Honesty. Tomorrow? We will discuss the rest. Then she kissed me. We made the next choice together and closed the door. By morning, Kaya's affinity crossed 90. The system exploded with rewards. First 90 affinity milestone, randomized high-tier bundle. Reward 1, lottery ticket. Reward 2, premium spending voucher. Reward 3, intimacy and stamina proficiency. The system gave the last reward a ridiculous name. A smaller line explained the rule I had been waiting for. Each adult woman could trigger one randomized bundle the first time her affinity crossed 90. The system still refused to explain what happened at 100. That question immediately moved into the expensive part of my brain. I had expected combat. The system had apparently studied my schedule and chosen comedy. Kaya saw me staring. Good news, debatable branding. She stole my pillow and refused further questions. Later that morning, Odette called while her friend Jovi sat beside her. Joby Loxley was blunt enough to qualify as a safety inspection. So you're the investor, Jovi announced through the speaker. How old are you? 20. That answer made the offer worse. Are you strange? Odette cut in. Jovi, he offered you a cafe after one car sale. I'm doing due diligence. I told her the salary, budget, and manager authority. Jovi asked whether I was old, married, or hiding 3 children. Young, single, and only hiding excellent judgment, I answered. Odette laughed. Jovi went quiet for one beat. He sounds dangerous, Jovi decided. Take the cafe before he developed caution. The call ended with Odette promising an answer soon. Then the lottery ticket from Kaya's reward matched every number. $1 million. I checked once. The retailer checked once. I drove straight to my parents before anybody could turn verification into a ceremony. Mom read the ticket and sat down. Dad took it, compared the numbers, and lowered his glasses with both hands. How much? He asked. 1 million. Mom covered her mouth. Dad walked to the window and stood there for several seconds. The same man who had negotiated 8-figure contracts could not find a sentence. My mother touched the ticket with one finger. Can they take this because of the company? We'll keep it separate and pay the debts deliberately, Dad answered. His business voice came back. Dad checked the amount again, straightened in his chair, and started dividing it between creditors. The company stayed broken, but he kept that business voice for a few precious minutes. I allocated roughly $600,000 to the company debt and family survival. I kept the rest for active investments and taxes. Mom immediately wrote down the amount. Dad immediately asked which creditor hurt us most. They were moving again. Dad turned back. Don't gamble the remainder because one ticket smiled at you. I already gambled $100,000 on Arlo. His face changed. That was a joke, I added. It was also true. The lottery gave me enough to keep my promise to Odette. Too bad Chet was about to make quitting the only safe choice and invite the whole sales floor to watch. The morning I could finally fund Odette's escape, Chet punished her for the restaurant brawl. He removed her from the sales floor for an entire month. He announced the punishment in front of the dealership staff. 1 month without sales meant 1 month without commission. He smiled while explaining it. I took that as a bet that lost income would force her back under control. Chet reassigned her best clients to Chad and called it a performance correction. Chad accepted the folders without meeting her eyes. The receptionist who had offered me coffee stopped typing. Even the manager who praised Odette's M9 sale stayed behind his glass office wall. Chet's ugliest advantage was fear. Everybody protected their own commission while he punished Odette. Odette called me while Chet was still talking. He says I can answer phones and watch everybody else take my clients, she told me. Chet's voice carried behind her. Hang up! You're on company time. Odette turned on speaker. Beau, repeat the cafe salary. I answered, $4,500 a month plus bonuses. You choose the staff. The sales floor went quiet enough for me to hear a printer finish. Chet stepped closer. That offer disappears when he gets bored. You don't have any experience running a cafe. Odette looked at the coworkers who had watched him corner her. Then she looked at the phone desk he had assigned her for a month. Then I'll learn somewhere you don't control, she answered. She removed her badge and placed it on his clipboard. Chet tried to switch from threat to mentorship. Don't destroy your career over emotion. Look at that logic. He removed her career, then warned her not to leave it. Odette picked up her purse. You removed the career part first. She walked out before he finished the next threat. One salesperson opened the door for her. Another nudged a client notebook across the desk so Odette could take her own contacts. Chet barked that company information stayed inside. The woman released the notebook and met Odette's eyes. The message still got through. Chet had used a month without commission as a leash. Odette cut the whole rope. By noon, she was in the passenger seat of my M9 with 1 box of personal items and no job. Still offering the cafe? She asked. I dislike repeating myself before lunch. Odette nodded. I dislike men who make rescue speeches. I opened her door. Perfect. I didn't prepare one. Odette's affinity ticked higher. We had a location to inspect that afternoon, but Elowen called first. She needed help moving teaching materials from a storage room on campus. Odette gave me a look when I mentioned my professor. You collect complicated women by job category? Apparently the system values professional diversity. She heard system as a joke. I heard it as an uncomfortable pattern. At Brighton State, Elowen stood inside a cramped storage room surrounded by boxes. She had tied her hair back and rolled up her sleeves. I lost half a sentence on arrival. Elowen noticed. The boxes are lower, Beau. I was assessing the work environment. Poorly. We carried the first stack toward her office. The narrow doorway forced us too close, and her affinity climbed while she pretended to examine a label. Elowen asked whether the rumors about my new SUV were true. I told her the car existed, and Zane's emotional recovery remained uncertain. You enjoy this too much, she murmured. He bought a car to impress Kaya. I bought mine because a supernatural budget told me to. She treated it as a joke. That helped. I reached past her for a heavy box. Elowen looked up, stopped breathing for one beat, and whispered, Students are outside. The door opened immediately. 2 students walked in asking about grades. One saw my hand beside Eloine's shoulder. The other saw her face. I lifted the box. Advanced logistics! Eloine stepped away so fast she bumped the shelf. One student offered to help. The other spent the whole time looking between us with future gossip energy. I left before the classroom rumor developed a syllabus. Odette waited beside the M9. Productive meeting? We moved 1 box and several boundaries. Efficient! Then we drove to the campus cafe. Hadley Ellsworth, an adult mother with tired eyes, needed to sell the clean business quickly. She explained that family trouble had made the cafe impossible to keep. The staff wanted to stay. The equipment worked. The price for the assets, lease transfer, and opening reserve fit inside my $45,000 plan. A toddler's drawing was taped beside the register. Every time Hadley mentioned home, her hand returned to it. She kept pushing for a fast sale because delay followed her through the front door. I asked Odette to inspect the operation, not the decorations. Hadley offered to lower the price if I kept every employee. I told her the staff decision belonged to the future manager. Odette asked the baristas who wanted to stay. Every hand went up, including the dishwashers from the back room. She checked the register flow, talked to the lead barista, opened the storage room, and asked about supplier debt. Hadley answered directly. No hidden disaster appeared. While Odette worked, Zane Jarrow arrived with 2 women from campus. The campus peacock had parked his new car outside and apparently followed the M9 because curiosity had defeated dignity. Zane leaned against the counter. "Beau, I heard you were working here now." One of the women laughed. The other looked at my SUV through the window and did not join her. "I'm working on the ownership issue," I told him. Zane glanced at Odette. "Is she your supervisor?" Odette returned with Hadley and set the operating summary on the counter. "I'll be the manager," she said. Zane smiled. "Manager of what?" I transferred the purchase amount. Hadley's phone chimed. The lead barista saw her expression and stopped wiping the same cup. Odette took the keys from Hadley's hand. "Manager of Beau's Cafe," Odette answered. The woman who had laughed checked the transfer screen over Hadley's shoulder. The other moved closer to the window to photograph the M9 and cafe sign in one frame. Zane looked at me, then at Odette, then at the keys. One of his companions asked whether the cafe would be hiring. The other asked Odette if the M9 outside belonged to me. Zane answered for us. He probably rented it. The lead barista held up the owner's insurance packet with my name on it. The vehicle registration was in the purchase file. "It's his." Zane's jaw tightened. His own witness had asked for a job, and an employee had corrected his last escape route. His new car had been carrying his whole campus status. I had arrived in a better vehicle and bought the building before he could finish mocking my job. He tried one final move. "Anybody can put money into a failing cafe," Hadley cut in. "It's profitable. I'm selling for family reasons." Odette opened the staff schedule. "And it will be more profitable after I fix this." Odette watched Zane stop bragging and tightened her grip on the cafe keys. The lead barista asked when she wanted the first meeting. A second employee brought her the manager's keyring. Zane's audience had changed sides without asking him. "Enjoy the coffee," I told him. He left without ordering. Odette watched the door close. Was he important? Only to himself. That got a laugh from the staff and a furious look through the window from Zane. "Witnesses improve flavor. Hadley and I kept the paperwork short." She retained a small transition payment and promised to help Odette for 2 weeks. Odette accepted the salary, authority, and bonus terms in writing. Then Hadley's phone rang. The screen displayed Chet Ellsworth. Odette's face changed first. "That's my former boss," she said. Hadley lowered the phone. "He is my husband." The cafe went quiet for a very different reason. Odette told Hadley only what was necessary. Chet had propositioned her, used the job as pressure, and punished her after the brawl. Hadley listened without defending him. Her hand tightened around the phone until the call stopped. The lead barista carried a tray into the back room without making eye contact. Another employee turned the front sign to "closed early." Hadley's private problem had just walked into the business she was selling. "He said there was trouble at work," Hadley murmured. He left out the part where he caused it. She unlocked her phone and showed Odette 3 unanswered messages from Chet. Each one demanded to know where she was. None asked how the sale had gone. Hadley looked at the keys in Odette's hand. "Maybe I'm not the only woman who needed to leave his payroll." I warned Odette against confronting him immediately. Chet had already used income as a weapon. Hadley had a child and a marriage problem. Pushing him without a safe plan could make him uglier. The cafe solved Odette's job. Chet remained dangerous inside Hadley's home. Hadley thanked us, took one last look around the room, and left with a box of personal items. Odette stood behind the counter holding the keys. "Yesterday I sold cars for a man I hated," she said. "Today I manage a cafe you bought after knowing me for a week. Your life has pacing issues," she pointed a key at me, "and you're banned from touching the espresso machine. Abuse of power already." The staff laughed. Odette smiled, then unlocked the manager's office. Odette called a 2-minute meeting. Schedules stayed, tips stayed with staff, and nobody lost shifts because a manager wanted a date. The lead barista nodded and immediately asked whether the weekend shifts should change. Odette answered before looking at me. The dishwasher asked when she wanted inventory counted. Odette clipped the manager's keys to her belt. Chet no longer controlled 1 hour of her workday. The perfect life system opened a new screen. First investment mission completed. Industry expansion fund, $1,500,000. Approved business profits, 3 times multiplier. Mystery industry reward available after deployment. The scale had jumped by 10. Odette came back from the office. You look worried. The system thinks I need a bigger hobby. Celebrate this one first. Dinner tonight. She locked the cafe and handed me the spare key. Her fingers stayed against mine for 1 beat too long. Wear something better than that sweatshirt tonight, Odette ordered. I bought a business in it. Exactly. Retire it undefeated. She walked away smiling, and the staff immediately pretended they had not watched us closely. I had a business, a manager, and $1.5 million that could only grow through real decisions. The next bill arrived through Odette herself. Our celebration would create a 24-hour property deadline before breakfast. Odette had no idea yet. Buying Odette a job solved one problem. Celebrating with her created a house-sized one. That evening, I met her at an expensive restaurant near the river. Odette had changed out of her dealership clothes and into a black dress that made my planned conversation briefly unavailable. She noticed the pause. The business owner lost his vocabulary? The dress is interfering with operations. Odette waved one hand. File a complaint. I'm trying to identify the responsible party. She sat across from me, smiling. Her affinity had climbed since the cafe purchase, and the system treated dinner as qualifying spending. We toasted the new business. Odette asked why I trusted her with it. You walked away from Chet before I paid you, I answered. That made the choice easier. Odette traced one finger around the rim of her glass. Kurt thought punching somebody proved he cared. Chet thought controlling my paycheck proved I belonged to him. You handed me keys and expected results. Results are attractive, I told her. Odette lifted one eyebrow. So are boundaries. I've heard of those. You'll learn, she promised. Her smile softened. Then she warned me that buying one cafe did not make me a business genius. A server arrived with the wrong wine, recognized the price of Odette's dress, and apologized twice. Odette waited until she left, then whispered, People are already treating me differently because I walked in with you. Tell them to keep up. You own the better title now. That earned a real smile. Good, I said. I was worried the title came with meetings. We argued about the menu, staff bonuses, and whether I was allowed behind the counter. Every answer ended with her banning me from another piece of equipment. By dessert, I owned a cafe and had no legal access to the toaster. The bill was large enough to make the multiplier useful. I paid. My phone vibrated with the cashback, and Odette watched the screen light up. Another cryptocurrency miracle? She asked. The coins are emotionally supportive. She did not believe me. She also did not push. After dinner, Odette asked for a ride home. At her apartment door, she thanked me and reached for the handle. I used the oldest excuse in the guilty pleasure manual. Can I get a glass of water? You know why I asked for water? Odette knew too. Odette looked at me for 3 full seconds. You bought dinner, a cafe, and several lies. Now you're thirsty? Dangerously. She opened the door. 1 glass. Inside, she poured water and leaned against the counter while I drank it with the seriousness of a medical treatment. Her apartment was small, clean, and full of evidence that she had built a life between sales shifts. 2 coffee books sat beside a budget notebook. A framed photo of her family leaned against the wall instead of hanging. Odette followed my eyes. Don't start furnishing the place in your head. I was judging the water service. Odette leaned against the counter. 1 star? The host is distracting. Better? She asked. I may require observation, I answered. Odette took the glass from my hand. Beau, stop hiding behind hydration. So I did. I told her I wanted to stay, and she told me she wanted the same. She kissed me first and pulled me closer. Odette pulled me down the hall, and the water glass stayed on the counter. Kurt arrived later with flowers. I heard his knock from the bedroom. Odette went still. Then Kurt called her name through the door and apologized for the brawl. She did not answer. He knocked again. The bouquet brushed against the hallway wall. Kurt understood before anyone explained. He lowered the flowers and walked to the stairwell without knocking a 3rd time. The closed door had answered him. The next morning, Odette cooked breakfast in an oversized shirt and told me the coffee still did not count as cafe quality. You're strict in your own home, I observed. It's rented. That's why I'm allowed to complain. The perfect life system opened a mission over the kitchen table. Buy Odette a home within 24 hours. Minimum size, 1,075 square feet. Property spending would return twice the purchase amount, and completion would grant a mystery property. The timer began. I read the mission twice, then looked at Odette. How would you feel about owning a home today? She set down the spatula. I'd feel concerned about your head. I showed her a property listing without showing the system. Pick something practical. A home is not a handbag, Beau. Correct. Harder to lose in a closet. She refused 3 times. I kept the explanation simple. The money was available. The cafe gave her a stable role. I wanted the property in her name. The mission deadline stayed my secret. Odette asked what happened if the cafe failed. I told her the home stayed hers. She asked what happened if we stopped seeing each other. Same answer. Then she asked whether I expected obedience in exchange. I put the listing on the table. I expect you to stop Chet from choosing your address through your paycheck. Her expression changed. Security meant more to her than luxury. Odette finally agreed to look, provided she could reject anything unreasonable. That condition lasted until Jovi found out. 40 minutes later, Odette's outspoken friend was waiting at the property office. She had brought Sailor Lockhart, an adult fitness trainer with athletic confidence and zero respect for personal space. Sailor hugged Odette, turned to me, and looked me over like a training plan. So this is the man buying houses now. 1 house, Odette corrected. Jovi raised a finger. Today, give him time. Sailor wore fitted workout clothes under an open jacket. I lost the thread of the property agent's greeting. Sailor caught me and smiled. Need help focusing? She asked. Apparently I need a personal trainer for eye discipline. I offer packages. Odette stepped between us and handed the agent her requirements. Jealousy had entered the building before the floor plan. The property agent showed us 3 homes. I ignored the long tour and watched Odette's reactions. The first had no useful storage. A sample pan fell from a cabinet and Sailor caught it one-handed. Jovi mourned the kitchen. Sailor asked whether the catch counted as an inspection. The second sat beside a highway. 1 truck break ended the tour. Odette turned around before the agent finished describing the view. The third made her stop in the living room. The unit was about 1,775 square feet. It had a home office, a guest room, and huge windows built for photos. Odette walked to the window and looked back toward us. She started placing her life in the rooms before catching herself. Jovi saw it too and stopped joking for almost 6 seconds. A personal record. Price, $450,000. Odette shook her head immediately. Too much. Jovi walked into the main bedroom and shouted that the closet had its own lighting. Sailor opened the balcony door. The gym downstairs is acceptable. I can work with this. Nobody asked you to move in, Odette called. I heard opportunity. The agent offered a small discount. I asked for 2 parking spaces instead. She blinked. The discount is worth more. Odette manages a business. Parking is useful every day. Odette's shoulders loosened at the practical answer. The agent called her manager. While she waited, Sailor leaned beside me. You bought a cafe and now a home, she murmured. What does a woman get for making you sweat? A towel. Earn the upgrade. She laughed and gave me her gym schedule. Odette took the card from her hand and read it. He is busy. Sailor smiled at her. Then make him stronger. You look tired. Jovi came out of the closet carrying no useful diplomacy. I support this competition. The agent returned with approval for both parking spaces. I signed the purchase agreement and transferred the funds. The phone confirmation arrived first. The agent's manager came out of his office second. He shook my hand with both of his and offered access to private listings. The receptionist who had greeted us casually stood and brought champagne. Another agent stopped mid-tour with a couple and whispered the sale amount. Odette stared at the contract bearing her name. This is mine? She asked. The property agent slid the keys across the table. Odette did not touch them at first. She asked the agent to repeat whose name appeared on the deed. Then she turned 1 key in her palm and closed her fist around it. Odette Corwin, the agent answered. Paid in full. The agent moved every remaining signature toward Odette instead of me. From then on, every question about the property went straight to its actual owner. The receptionist lowered the champagne bottle and smiled. Jovi stopped recording long enough to squeeze Odette's shoulder. Even Sailor's expression softened before competition returned. The mortgage company will be devastated to learn it has no role, I said. She hit my arm, then hugged me hard enough to erase the joke. For 1 clean second, she was the woman who had walked out of Chet's dealership with 1 box. Now she held keys nobody there could take from her. Jovi recorded the moment and immediately promised to send it only to people who deserved envy. Sailor watched the hug, then folded my gym card into my pocket herself. Don't get comfortable, she whispered. The property mission completed. $900,000 returned under the 2 times category rule. Then the mystery reward appeared. Lakefront Villa awarded. Estimated value, $1,500,000. The property file showed a private dock, 3 floors, and more empty rooms than I knew how to use. The system had gone from handbags to real estate with the emotional restraint of a game show host. For several seconds, I thought the system had added a 0 by mistake. It had not. The agent received the villa transfer notice through the affiliated property office. His manager reread the address, straightened his jacket, and started calling me Mr. Langley. Jovi grabbed Odette's hand. He bought you a home and received a villa? Odette looked at me. Your cryptocurrency is becoming rude. Sailor leaned over the agent's tablet to study the villa photos. When are we touring it? We? Odette repeated. The agent asked for my direct contact to arrange the key handoff. Sailor offered to coordinate because she knew my schedule after exactly one conversation. The agent handed me her card. Sailor took it, wrote her own number on the back, and slid it into my pocket. Odette removed the card, kept the agent's side, and tore off Sailor's number. He already has my number, Sailor reminded her. Odette smiled. Then you won't miss this one. The agent started addressing Odette as the homeowner and me as Mr. Langley. Sailor kept smiling because she already had my number. Odette kept the card anyway. Then the system attached another obligation. Commission an exclusive custom interior for the villa. Completion reward, $3 million. The villa had made me look rich. Eloin's next call would ask whether that money could buy influence at Brighton State. The villa made me look rich. Eloin's problem offered something better, the right to choose who got a future. 2 days after the property reward, I found her at the campus cafe arguing with an empty investor list. Brighton State had launched an entrepreneurship initiative. The school had weak applicants, no serious money, and administrators who believed confidence could replace both. Eloin slid a folder toward me. We need outside investors. The university can provide space and supervision. She showed me the current list. Half the students wanted funding for vague apps. The rest had written goals like, become market leader, without explaining what market they planned to enter. Supervision from people who attracted zero investors? Eloin shut the folder. The last investor withdrew after Reed tried to control every decision. She pressed her lips together. That's why I asked before Reed could hear me. The Perfect Life system opened a prestige branch. Campus investment could generate prestige points through visible results. Every 500 points would unlock a chance at a talent upgrade. The screen gave no earning chart. Fine, one rule, one temptation. I asked how many proposals were actually good. Eloin hesitated. That many? I said. Eloin defended them. The students need guidance. I tapped the folder. They need ideas first. She kicked my shoe under the table, which was unprofessional and deserved respect. I offered money under one condition. I chose which ventures received it. Eloin lowered her voice. The university will want oversight. It can oversee the money remaining in its own account. She accused me of enjoying difficult negotiations. I spent 1 day broke. I'm compensating. To prove the capacity, I showed her my balance once, about $2,200,000. Eloin read the number, looked away, then looked again. Her coffee stopped halfway to her mouth. A professor at the next table noticed her reaction and leaned toward the screen before she turned it over. Beau, where did this come from? Cryptocurrency. I bought while my family still had money. I sold after the collapse. The cover story worked because the balance already existed. Eloin gripped the folder. If you invest even part of this, the project survives. She closed it and pulled it closer. The empty investor list finally had one real name beside it. The professor at the next table suddenly packed his laptop and left, but only after glancing at me twice. A student nearby had heard the amount and was already typing. The secret investor rumor started before I even agreed. Then bring me candidates worth surviving. Eloin reached across the table and lowered my phone. Don't show that balance to anyone else on campus. Protective already? Practical. Her affinity rose, which made business negotiations unnecessarily entertaining. That afternoon, Renly Bramley and Nola Dunley followed me across campus. They were former classmates who had turned my bankruptcy into a hobby. Renly still looked at me too long before joining the jokes. Nola supplied enough cruelty for both of them. They thought I had taken a part-time job at the cafe. I heard them before I saw them. Nola told Renly to get a photo of me wearing an apron. Renly warned that I might notice. Nola replied that broke people did not get to be proud. They wanted a photo of the broke employee. I slowed down and let them follow. Nola whispered loudly, maybe he finally learned how normal people work. Renly asked whether I would give them an employee discount. Employees receive training, I told her. Stalkers receive seating if they buy coffee. Renly almost smiled. Nola elbowed her and asked whether I could still afford my own drink. I opened the cafe door for them. Come find out. Odette stood behind the counter reviewing inventory. Sailor sat on a stool in workout clothes, drinking something green enough to qualify as punishment. Odette saw me first. Boss, the new supplier sent samples. Sailor turned and smiled. Boss, your posture is still terrible. Renly stopped inside the doorway. Nola walked into her back. The lead barista brought me the weekly sales sheet and asked for approval on a staff bonus. I signed it against the counter while the two women watched. Nola pointed at Odette. You call him boss? Odette looked at the keys in my hand. He owns the cafe. Nola laughed once, too fast. Sure. And Sailor works for him too? Sailor sipped the green punishment drink. I'm interviewing him for private training. His finances passed. The lead barista placed the owner's copy of the sales report under my hand. Your signature goes here, Beau. A customer near the pastry case glanced over. One staff member smiled because she had heard the entire setup. Renly looked from the M9 outside to Odette, then to Sailor. The customer asked whether the new owner planned to change the menu. I answered him directly. Nola looked away while a stranger treated the ownership as settled in front of her. "You bought this place?" Renly asked. "I needed somewhere to serve people who follow me for discounts." Nola's face heated. "We were just walking this way." I pointed toward the sidewalk. "In matching silence behind me for 3 blocks. Impressive coincidence." The customer laughed into his cup. The lead barista asked whether the women wanted applications. Nola left first. Renly lingered long enough to ask whether the investor rumor was also true. I smiled. "Which rumor?" She had no safe answer and followed Nola out. The lead barista answered a customer's question with, "The owner!" loud enough to reach the sidewalk. Nola sped up. Renly looked back once. Outside, 2 students compared the M9 with Zane's car. One photographed the cafe receipt with my name at the bottom. Renly heard someone ask whether Zane had been lying about Kaya and walked faster. The rumor did not need a press release. Humiliation travels on free Wi-Fi. Odette watched the crowd form and locked the owner's paperwork in the office. "You wanted campus status," she warned. "Status comes with people staring through the windows. Let them buy something while they stare." Sailor watched through the window. "The blue-haired one still likes you." Odette closed the sales sheet. "She likes the revised balance sheet." "Jealous?" Sailor asked. "Employed?" Odette answered. I enjoyed both answers. The cafe closed an hour later. Odette took me upstairs to review the new office and reward the business owner for staying away from the espresso machine. She showed me the first day's numbers, then closed the laptop and sat on the desk. "You kept your promise," she said. "The cafe is open." "You did the harder part." Odette tilted her head. "I'm still deciding your reward. Take your time." "The office seems comfortable." The conversation stopped being about inventory. She asked me directly whether I wanted to stay, and I answered directly. The door locked. A few minutes later, Sailor returned for the purse she had left downstairs. She called Odette's name, heard enough through the office door, and paused. The hallway went silent. Then her purse zipper opened with exaggerated care. "Scoreboard update," Sailor announced from the hall. "Home team is busy." Odette threw a cushion at the door. It hit the wood and dropped. Sailor laughed. "Next time, invite a coach. Your conditioning sounds uneven." "Leave," Odette snapped. Sailor answered. "I'm leaving. I found my purse and several answers." Her footsteps moved downstairs. Odette covered her face. "I'm never speaking to her again." I told her. "She'll be back tomorrow." Odette groaned. "That's the problem." Sailor had turned one forgotten purse into a public score update. She would be bolder next time, which was already a problem. While I was still at the cafe, Elowen called with Reed Quinlan listening beside her. Reed was the university administrator running the initiative, and his first move was pure hierarchy. "Mr. Langley," Reed began, "report to my office tomorrow morning. We need to verify your capacity and explain the university's conditions. I need you to hear the confidence in that sentence." He spoke like the money already belonged to him. Elowen tried to soften it. "Reed, Beau has classes in the morning. Students adjust to university schedules," Reed replied. "Investors provide documentation. The committee decides access." I was a student when Reed wanted obedience, and an investor when he wanted records. I put the call on speaker so Odette could hear. The lead barista was still closing downstairs and paused at the foot of the steps when Reed's voice carried. "No," I answered. Odette's smile widened. She held up one finger and started counting how long Reed's confidence would survive. The barista downstairs stopped sweeping. Silence followed. Elowen inhaled sharply. Odette stopped fastening an earring and watched the phone. Reed's voice hardened. "This project can't operate around a student's convenience. Then operate without the student's $2 million. Odette covered a smile, and the barista downstairs stopped moving completely. Reed threatened to reject my participation and warned that Brighton State did not chase donors. "Excellent," I told him. "We agree. Don't chase me." I told him to remove my name. That confidence lasted 3 seconds. Someone on Reed's side whispered that the investor list was empty. He muted too late. Elowen said his name in the tone professors use before confiscating a bad decision. Odette mouthed, cooked, without making a sound. Elowen cut in before Reed could double down again. "Beau, the university is willing to discuss your selection condition. Invite me like an investor." Reed objected to the wording. I ended the call. Odette stared at the dark screen. "You hung up on a university administrator while sitting half-dressed in your own cafe." "Context improves negotiation." Elowen called back alone 2 minutes later. "Reed wants me to ask when you're available," she told me. "Tomorrow evening, somewhere with food." Elowen exhaled. "You're enjoying this." He started with report to my office. "I'm helping him discover verbs." She laughed before catching herself. Then her voice changed. "Otto Kingsley is reviewing the project tonight. He chairs the senior committee, and he asked why the only serious investor just hung up. Tell him the serious investor has hearing problems around commands." Elowen sighed. "Please wear a shirt with sleeves when this becomes a meeting. No promises." Reed's second call no longer contained a command, it contained a dinner request. The lead barista came upstairs holding the closed cash drawer. She had heard enough of the speakerphone exchange to understand the hierarchy flip. Did the university just ask you to bring money to them? She asked. Odette corrected her. They ordered him first. Now they're asking where to meet. The barista looked at the cafe keys on my desk and shook her head. People really do become polite after the balance appears. Elowen sent one final message that night. Otto wanted to meet me personally, and his arrival would not stay quiet on a campus built from gossip. Reed wanted me summoned. By the next night, Otto would be standing in my dorm while half the building watched. The school had finally learned to ask politely. Before Otto reached my dorm, Kaya stopped me behind the athletic field and asked a much harder question. What am I to you? Kaya stood under a stadium light with her arms folded. Her expression killed the joke before I tried one. I knew what she meant. We had spent nights together, she had crossed 90 affinity, and half the campus already treated us like a couple. I had avoided the label because labels came with expectations the system did not manage. Kaya waited. You're my girlfriend, I told her. Kaya searched my face as if the title might be counterfeit. Say my name with it. Kaya Norwood is my girlfriend. A couple walking the track passed behind us and looked over. Kaya heard them whisper and squeezed my hand harder. The public part mattered to her too. Kaya finally exhaled. Her shoulders lowered a little. Only girlfriend? There was the bill. I won't promise exclusivity and break it later, I answered. You matter to me. A calm evening isn't worth a lie. Kaya looked away toward the field. She heard the care in my answer. The warning hurt too. You could offer me a car or a house right now, she said. I could. I want you to show up when I ask. Smaller gifts are fine. That request hit harder than another luxury list. She wanted access, and my time had already become the scarce resource. I held out my hand. Kaya took it. Girlfriend, she repeated, testing the word. Dangerously official. Kaya squeezed my hand. Don't ruin it. I ruin things with range. She laughed, despite herself, and leaned into me. The relationship gained a name in public. The exclusivity problem stayed open. The next morning, Sailor video called me from the gym. Callista stood behind her near the smoothie counter, scrolling with the expression of someone shopping for an upgrade. Sailor had been telling her about Odette's new home. My friend received a $450,000 place from a handsome 20-year-old, Sailor announced, making sure Callista heard every word. Callista looked up. 20? Sailor turned the camera slightly. Young, rich, owns a cafe, drives an M9. Terrible posture. He sounds imaginary, Callista replied. I stayed quiet on the call. Sailor's eyes flicked toward the screen, and she kept the camera angled so Callista heard every word. Callista asked whether the man was married, old-looking, or secretly unattractive. Each question made Sailor smile wider. Come pick me up, Sailor told me. You can defend your posture. I drove to the gym. When the M9 stopped outside, Sailor walked out first. Callista followed, still holding her phone. I stepped from the driver's side. Callista stopped mid-step. You could watch the exact second the math caught up with her. Her gaze moved from my face to the M9, then to Sailor sliding into the passenger seat. The smoothie in her hand tilted until the lid popped loose. A gym receptionist caught the cup before it fell. A trainer beside the door looked from Callista to me and stepped aside. Sailor opened the door again and held up the villa key packet. You forgot this, billionaire. The receptionist's eyes widened. The trainer glanced toward the parking lot where two members had already started recording the M9. Callista heard the word billionaire from another woman's mouth and had nowhere to hide the comparison. She walked closer to the driver's door. You were broke. For one day, I reminded her. You said your family lost everything. My family did. Callista's grip tightened around the damaged cup. I had rebuilt my own cash while she was still dating the replacement she chose for stability. Beau? Callista managed. The damaged cup folded under her grip. The receptionist handed her a towel without asking what had happened. Sailor leaned over the center console. You two know each other? She timed love by account balance, I said. The timer expired. Callista's face tightened. You bought Odette that home? I started the vehicle. Sailor, seatbelt. I pulled away before Callista could turn the parking lot into another argument. The car, Sailor, my age, and the house price stayed behind in one frame. Her phone rang as we pulled away. The same older sponsor's voice leaked through the speaker. Callista kept her eyes on me and snapped, Fine. Dinner. Send the address. I left her beside the gym with every comparison she had tried to avoid. What she did with that regret was still her move. Sailor watched Callista shrink in the mirror. You could have enjoyed that more. I did. Quietly. Sailor narrowed her eyes. You're lying. Correct. We drove to the property office for the villa keys. The agent carried them in a velvet box, and Sailor whispered that it was more dramatic than most proposals. Don't get ideas, I told her. I'm collecting options. At the villa, the lake filled the rear windows. 3 floors. A private dock. Empty rooms waiting for furniture expensive enough to insult common sense. The manager called Sailor the future lady of the house. I corrected him. Friend! Sailor placed one hand over her heart. Cruel! In front of the lake, too! The agent coughed into her hand. The manager corrected himself to Ms. Lockhart and spent the next minute studying the floor. Then Sailor walked through the main room with her phone raised. No face, I warned. I know. Mystery performs better. She photographed the view, the keys, and one corner of my sleeve. Within minutes, comments asked who owned the place and whether she had a billionaire boyfriend. You enjoy the rumor, I said. Sailor stepped closer. I'd enjoy correcting it. Too fast. She tapped my chest. You bought Odetta House after one night. I tapped the key packet. The system had a timer. Sure, the system. She treated it as another joke. My secret remained safe because the truth sounded worse than flirting. The perfect like system formalized the next mission. Commission an exclusive custom interior for the villa. Completion reward, $3 million. No deadline appeared, but a house that size could eat money without chewing. I needed a design firm, and Sailor immediately volunteered to inspect every bedroom. I declined the generous sacrifice and drove her back to the gym. Shane Ransom, her controlling manager, waited beside the front desk. He checked the time and scolded Sailor for missing a class. A client complained, Shane claimed. I protected you this time. Sailor asked for the client's name. He refused. Management protects privacy. You can repay the favor over dinner. The receptionist looked down. Another trainer stopped stretching. Shane's favor had arrived with a bill attached. Sailor handed him the class log. The class was reassigned yesterday. Your signature is on it. Shane glanced at the page and changed direction. That's not the point. Your attitude is becoming a problem. Your memory is the problem. She walked past him. Shane called after her that nobody else would tolerate her schedule. Then he saw me waiting beside the M9 and lowered his volume. Is he the reason you missed work? Shane asked. Sailor turned around. No. Your fake schedule change is the reason you invented a complaint. The receptionist finally looked up. The other trainer slid the signed log closer to Shane, forcing him to see his own name again. He told both employees to get back to work. Neither moved until Sailor walked away. The receptionist left his signed log on the desk. Shane lowered his voice. Sailor glanced back at Shane. At least when you're shameless, you don't call it management. Accurate. By evening, I returned to the dorm. Toby Zeller, my roommate with a gift for romantic defeat, shoved his phone into my hand. He had sent a woman 12 messages. She had answered one. No! What do I say now? Toby asked. Nothing. You've already said enough for a documentary. Scott Yarrow, our other roommate, looked over from his desk. Be gentle. He believes persistence is a personality. Toby pointed at Scott. You're single too. I'm losing privately, Scott replied. The joke lasted until the hallway outside filled with students. A rumor said senior officials were coming to discipline me. Another claimed the police were involved. One man had brought snacks. Elowen entered first. Reed followed with a stiff expression. Otto Kingsley came behind them, the senior committee leader who could approve the entrepreneurship initiative. The crowd went quiet. One student slipped his snack bag behind his back. The resident assistant stepped forward to ask whether they needed privacy, but Otto told her the invitation could be public. Reed's mouth tightened. He had wanted a summons. Otto had brought witnesses. Toby whispered. Delete the group chat. You wrote most of it, Scott reminded him. A student near the stairs asked whether I was being suspended. Elowen turned toward him. Mr. Langley is being invited to discuss a university investment. Phones rose again, this time for a completely different reason. Otto stopped in our doorway and extended his hand to me. Mr. Langley, I apologize for the poor invitation earlier, he said. Brighton State would like to discuss your investment over dinner. The student nearest the door lowered his phone. Another reread the message, claiming, I was being expelled. A resident assistant who had arrived to control the crowd straightened and offered Otto her chair. Reed kept the apology. He stopped telling me where to report. I shook Otto's hand. Dinner works. Selection authority remains part of the conversation. Reed tried to step in. Final selection must remain with the university. Otto held up one hand without looking away from me. Reed, that's why we're having dinner. The administrator stopped. A man who had ordered me into his office the day before had just been corrected in my dorm hallway. Toby's eyes widened. Scott silently raised one thumb. Then we will discuss it directly, Otto answered. That response earned respect. He wanted accountability, but he had enough sense to negotiate before pretending he owned the money. Otto asked whether the M9 outside was mine. I confirmed it. The student who had claimed arrest deleted his post while another student read it over his shoulder in real time. Elowen watched the exchange with visible relief. Toby stared at Otto's hand, then at me. Are you in trouble? He whispered. Expensive trouble. Outside, the crowd's story changed in real time. The broke student had become the man senior officials visited in person. A woman from the floor below asked Toby whether I was secretly funding the university. Toby answered that he had been asking me to cover pizza for months and felt personally betrayed. Scott told her to ignore him. Elowen waited until Otto and Reed moved toward the stairs. Tank top or jacket tomorrow? She asked. You really care about sleeves? Elowen lifted her chin. I have a professional reputation. Then jacket? Probably. Her smile said probably was already causing trouble. Callista had recognized the billionaire that morning. By night, the university had recognized the investor. At dinner, I would have to prove I could control $1.5 million. Better receipts could not be my only qualification. Reed would be there, still hoping the table restored his authority. I planned to make him negotiate for every inch at an expensive dinner the next night. The next evening, Otto invited me to a downtown restaurant for my money. I arrived in a tank top and asked for control. Elowen saw the shirt first. I said sleeves. These are extremely short sleeves. Look, Elowen asked for sleeves. Technically, the tank top had two. Reed looked offended before I sat down. Otto looked amused, which confirmed he was the useful administrator in the room. Once we sat down, Otto explained the accountability problem in plain language. Brighton State could not hand one student unchecked power over $1.5 million. I explained mine. I would not fund weak ventures chosen to protect university politics. Reed pushed the folder toward me. Final authority belongs to the committee. I pushed it back. Then final funding belongs to my account. Elowen closed her eyes for 1 second. Otto asked what control I actually needed. I laid it out. The university could verify students, provide office space, and monitor legal use. I selected the ventures. If a candidate lied or wasted money, the funding stopped. Reed asked whether I planned to favor friends or attractive applicants. Elowen nearly choked on her water. I plan to favor people who can make money, I answered. If they're attractive, Brighton State may survive the tragedy. The server set down a plate and walked away too quickly, shoulders shaking. Otto hid his smile behind the proposal. Reed wrote something that looked personal. Reed called that excessive. Your current investor total is 0, I reminded him. Excessive has room to compete. The server placed water beside Reed and nearly smiled. Otto ignored the jab and asked how I would evaluate applicants. That question exposed a weakness I did not want to advertise. I understood people, pressure, and obvious nonsense. I did not yet understand enough business to judge every plan, so I answered with what I could defend. Give me complete proposals, interviews, and freedom to reject. I'll bring outside judgment when needed. Otto wrote the condition into the agreement. Reed tried to demand a committee veto. Otto stopped him. We can require compliance without choosing the investments. He turned the agreement toward me. You choose among qualified applicants. We monitor compliance. Nobody spends without records. Reed's pen froze. Elowen's shoulders relaxed. The server returned, saw the pen still hanging over the page, and set down the check very carefully. Outside the restaurant, Elowen mentioned that her lease had ended. She and Brenly needed help moving within the week. Use the M9, I offered. Elowen hesitated. Brenly will think you arranged the lease problem. Your sister gives me too much credit. She laughed, then touched the strap of the designer bag for my first system purchase. I had it appraised, she admitted. It's genuine. I stopped beside the car. Your knockoff has betrayed me. Elowen tightened her hold on the bag. You lied to make me accept a $7,000 gift, I answered. The lie was affordable. Elowen stepped closer. Her expression shifted between anger and something much less professional. Why me? She asked. I could not tell her tutorial recipient. I gave her the part that was true. You helped me when everybody else treated bankruptcy like a disease. Her grip tightened on the bag strap. She kissed my cheek, then stepped into her ride before either of us could make the moment worse. Through the window, she touched the same cheek once and looked annoyed at herself. I stood beside the M9 with the genuine bag problem and a moving date 2 days away. Later that night, Hadley returned to the cafe after closing. She needed a box of personal items and asked Odette for a bottle of wine before leaving. Odette had already gone home, so I stayed while Hadley sat at the back table. Hadley sat with both hands around the glass and did not look up. I stopped joking. Hadley told me Chet had been harassing women at the dealership for years. She had ignored hints because he always came home with explanations and anger. After Odette's story, she could no longer pretend the pattern was office gossip. She showed me a message from Chet demanding the cafe money. He called the sale a family asset and accused her of hiding cash. Hadley had used part of the payment to secure rent and childcare. He wanted the rest under his control. She planned to divorce him. The front door rattled once in the wind. Hadley flinched, checked the lock twice, and continued only after the handle stopped moving. He controls most of our accounts, Hadley said. He also uses our child whenever I try to leave. I told her to secure somewhere safe and protect any money she could legally use. Then she needed qualified help before confronting him alone. I did not promise that my wallet could solve the danger. Odette had escaped Chet's payroll. Hadley still went home to him. Hadley poured another glass. You're 20. Why are you giving me the responsible answer? Because the irresponsible answer would put you near him while he is angry. She studied me, then reached across the table and kissed me. The kiss was brief, messy, and carried more exhaustion than romance. Hadley pulled away first. I should go, she whispered. Yes. Get home safely. She took the box and left. I watched until her car pulled away. Her taillights vanished, but Chet's messages stayed on my phone. Hadley's wine glass remained beside Chet's messages. I locked the cafe after her. I was still slightly buzzed when I reached Odette's apartment. She opened the door and looked at me. Water again? Just a hug. Odette folded her arms. Your excuses are getting lazier. The successful ones create confidence. Odette let me in. I told her Hadley had disclosed the marriage problem and that I had advised caution. I did not hide the kiss. Odette stared at me for a long moment. You're exhausting. I brought honesty. You brought wine breath. She still pulled me into the apartment. We chose to spend the night together, and the rest stayed private. The next morning, Aloan called to confirm the university project had been approved. Otto had accepted the selection structure, while Reed retained compliance review. That structure left the actual yes or no decision with me. Reed wants a formal statement, Aloan added. He can formally read the answer in the agreement. She laughed, then reminded me that we were moving boxes in 2 days. Brenly had already threatened to count every minute I spent near her. She needed candidate criteria. I asked for a business plan, basic financials, a photo, height, weight, availability, and a short personal profile. Aloan accused me of turning the initiative into a dating app. A founder has to present, I told her. The plan still decides the money. Aloan tapped the form. You asked for height and weight, complete profile. She only said my name, Beau. She kept the fields and warned me that one shallow rejection would bring the entire committee into my office. Fair pressure. That afternoon, Sailor summoned me to the gym parking lot. Cal Truett waited beside her with a sports car worth more than the M9. He was a wealthy suitor who had apparently brought his parents' money to a jealousy audition. Cal held up the key. Sailor, dinner tonight. I upgraded the offer. 2 trainers stood near the gym doors watching. Shane had also appeared behind the glass. He folded his arms and watched Cal point at the car. Sailor looked toward my M9 arriving at the curb. I already have plans. Cal followed her gaze. With him? My car cost twice as much. One trainer glanced at Cal's car, the other looked at Sailor walking away from it. Price had lost the vote before I parked. I stepped out. Congratulations to the car. Cal ignored me and told Sailor that his family owned several dealerships. She walked to my passenger door. Beau owns the vehicle he arrived in. Cal's grip tightened around the key. He tried to shake my hand too hard. I let him squeeze, then asked whether the car came with a personality package. Sailor covered a laugh. Cal released my hand. Inside the M9, she admitted she had invited Cal because she wanted to see whether I got jealous. Did it work? She asked. I felt sorry for the car. Sailor punched my shoulder. You're impossible. You staged a parking lot audition, and you passed badly. Her affinity still rose. She refused to leave the M9 when I drove to the design firm handling the villa, so she followed me inside and evaluated the staff as if they were romantic opponents. A designer asked what style I wanted. I chose a classic, warm interior with modern systems and clean rooms. The decision took under 2 minutes. Then I stated the budget. $3 million! The designer stopped writing. The receptionist looked up from across the studio. A senior employee walked out of an office and asked me to repeat the number. Up to $3 million for an exclusive design and full execution, I said. Show me something worth finishing. The staff changed posture. Coffee appeared. Sailor received a chair beside mine without asking. The senior employee replaced the standard packet with an exclusive client contract and opened the private materials cabinet. A junior designer carried away the standard sample books and returned with custom stone, wood, and lighting options. The receptionist closed the public room so walk-in clients could not wander through the meeting. The senior employee asked which competitors I was considering. I named none. Silence made them work harder. Sailor ran one finger over a stone sample. $3 million buys a lot of bedrooms. It buys doors too, I reminded her. The receptionist coughed into her hand. The senior employee suddenly needed to inspect the ceiling. The designer offered dinner before the contract was even signed. The plans are still blank, I reminded her. Our owner likes to know major clients personally. Her phone rang. She answered, listened, and handed it to me. Stetson Pemberton, owner of the design firm, introduced himself and thanked me for considering them. He invited me to dinner the following night. His young assistant designer, Verity Winslet, would attend because she had prepared part of the concept. Sailor leaned close enough to hear. We'll be there, she answered for me. Stetson paused, then welcomed us both. I ended the call and looked at her. We? Sailor crossed her legs. Your posture needs supervision, and the firm is bringing a designer to dinner like a gift basket. Jealousy joined the project before the contract signature. The firm had brought Verity to dinner, and Sailor had already claimed the seat beside me. I had no idea what Stetson had told Verity. I only knew Sailor was treating dinner like a defensive operation. Stetson brought a designer to dinner, like the $3 million contract needed a prettier cover page. Sailor noticed before the appetizers. The next evening, she followed me into Stetson Pemberton's private dining room and found Verity Winslet already seated beside the owner. Verity was a young adult assistant designer from the firm. She wore a simple dress, kept both hands around her water glass, and looked less comfortable than the executives arranging the seating. Stetson greeted me warmly. "Mr. Langley." Verity prepared several early concepts for the villa. Sailor took the chair beside me before anyone offered it. "This is Sailor," I said, "a friend." Her knee pressed against mine under the table. "Just a friend," Sailor repeated. "He likes dangerous labels." Verity looked down. Stetson changed the subject to the contract. The tactic was obvious after the seating, the compliments, and the way an executive kept asking Verity to refill my glass. I could infer the firm wanted the client socially comfortable. Verity looked like an employee assigned to make that happen. When the executive offered her wine, Verity declined. He pushed again. "One toast for the client." I moved the bottle away. "Water is fine. The design still has to work sober." Verity's shoulders loosened. Sailor noticed that too, and her jealousy developed a small moral crisis. "You protect every pretty employee you meet," she whispered. "Only the ones being cornered during my dinner." Annoyingly decent answer. Then Dax Pemberton walked in. You remember Dax, the bar clown with an emergency at 7:30? He had mocked my bankruptcy before fleeing from Arlo's transfer. Now he stopped when he saw me at Stetson's table. "Beau," he blurted. Stetson looked between us. "You know Mr. Langley?" Dax's eyes moved to the villa plans, the budget sheet, and Stetson's hand resting beside my contract. "We have met," I said. Sailor leaned back, interested. Verity looked up. The executive who had pushed the wine waited for Dax to explain. Dax tried to recover. "Grandpa, he was at Arlo's bar meeting. His family went bankrupt." Stetson tapped the $3 million budget. "Mr. Langley owns the lakefront villa and is considering our largest residential contract this quarter." The executive who had pushed wine stopped reaching for the bottle. Verity glanced from the contract to Dax. Sailor's smile became openly vicious. Dax checked the number twice. "$3 million?" he asked. Stetson corrected him. "Up to $3 million, if our work earns it." Dax bowed his head toward me. His grandfather had tied family profit to my approval in one sentence. His voice changed before his face did. "Of course, Mr. Langley. I didn't realize the scale of your current projects." Sailor coughed into her napkin. Verity's eyes flicked toward me, then back to Dax. Stetson told his grandson to make sure I received priority service. The man who had laughed at my sweatshirt now stood beside my chair asking whether I needed anything. "An early morning?" I asked. Dax remembered his escape excuse. His ears turned red. "No, sir!" Grandpa's newest employee had arrived. After dinner, Stetson extended the client courtship to karaoke. Sailor agreed only after learning Verity was going. At the lounge, Verity sang softly and well. Sailor followed with enough confidence to make the room understand competition had entered the playlist. Stetson praised both women. Dax applauded whichever one his grandfather watched. Verity sat beside me afterward. "I'm still new to private residential design," she admitted. "The budget is bigger than anything I've handled." "Then don't pretend you know everything," I told her. "Bring one strong room first," Verity asked. "Which room?" Sailor answered from my other side. "The gym! He desperately needs one." I looked at Verity. "The bedroom. It has fewer witnesses." Sailor's affinity jumped. Verity turned red, then surprised me by answering, "Bedrooms still need load calculations." The table went silent for half a beat. Sailor laughed first. I respected Verity more after that. When the group split, Sailor refused to send me home alone. She had spent weeks flirting, competing, and making every room into a tryout. At the hotel entrance, she finally stopped performing. Before she chose, I told her Kaya was my girlfriend and Odette was already in my life. I had no exclusivity promise to offer. Sailor glanced at the hotel doors. "I have eyes, Beau. I'm not asking for a fairy tale. If I come upstairs, I'm choosing this. Don't blame jealousy tomorrow. I'll blame your poor taste." There he is. I booked a luxury suite for 1 month, about $16,000. The desk clerk reread the duration. 1 month? She asked. "I dislike packing." Sailor rested one elbow on the counter. "He also fears commitment to checkout times." A bell attendant glanced at Sailor, then at me, and became extremely helpful. Another clerk offered breakfast, parking, and private elevator access without checking the standard list. Status was doing physical work again. The spending qualified at her high affinity. Cashback hit my account before the elevator closed. Sailor saw the balance rise but only smiled at my expression. "Your emotional cryptocurrency is pleased," she said. "It supports fitness." Inside the suite, I asked once more whether she wanted to stay. Sailor took my phone, closed the system alert, and placed it face down. "Coach's decision." She kissed me. Sailor pulled me into the suite, and even her scoreboard jokes stopped at the door. The next morning, Sailor wore the hotel robe and examined the car listings on my phone like a procurement officer. I promised a vehicle under $430,000. She selected a sports car around $360,000 and asked whether the color looked fast enough. "You're a trainer," I said. "Run beside it." She threw a pillow. Then she informed me Odette preferred a luxury grand tour near 700,000. You women have developed tears, I said. We communicate. That was terrifying information. The next afternoon, I called Odette before anyone else could tell her what happened. I started with the car promise. She had earned a better vehicle through the cafe and the life she was building. Then I told her about Sailor. Odette went quiet. Did you call to buy forgiveness? She asked. No! The car offer existed before the confession. That doesn't make this painless. Her voice cracked once, and my deadpan stopped. I told her I cared about her. I also repeated that I would not promise exclusivity and hide the truth later. Odette breathed slowly. I hate that I can't change you. You can leave. I'll still fund the cafe and keep the home in your name. I know. That's why this is harder. She asked whether Sailor mattered or whether the night had only been another reward trigger. I told her Sailor mattered. The answer hurt more, but it was the answer. Odette wiped her cheek before the tear fully formed. I'm staying because I choose the life I see, Beau. Don't ever make me defend a lie I didn't know about. I won't. She chose to stay. Her voice remained tight, but she kept me on the line. Then Odette asked for the luxury grand tour anyway. Sailor told you, I said. We communicate. The conspiracy was confirmed. 2 days later, I used the M9 to help Elowen and Brenly move. Brenly supervised every box, as if I might smuggle bad intentions between the dishes. The first trip went smoothly. Naturally, the underwear box failed on the second. The bottom opened in the hallway. Lace, straps, and several pieces I did not need, explained, scattered around my shoes. Elowen froze. I froze. A neighbor carrying groceries stopped and reconsidered her route. Brenly looked at the box, then at me. Don't comment. I've entered witness protection. Elowen covered her face while I gathered the safest items by their tags. Inside the new apartment, Brenly finally explained why she distrusted men. Her long-distance boyfriend had cheated and lied for months. She had watched Elowen defend him before the proof arrived. Brenly set the empty box down and looked directly at me. I'm not letting my sister repeat my mistake, she told me. Then watch what I do, I answered. Don't invent what I'll do. She did not agree, but she also did not throw me out. Later, while Brenly carried boxes downstairs, I found Elowen alone in the new living room. Just helping move, I said. That excuse is already true. Don't ruin it. I kissed her. She kissed me back, then grabbed my shirt when I tried to step away. The moment deepened until Brenly's key turned in the door. Elowen pushed me back. A faint mark showed near her collar. Brenly entered, saw both of us, and closed the door very slowly. I left for 90 seconds, she said. Efficient move, I offered. Hallway, Beau. I stepped outside. The door stayed open while Elowen touched the mark and looked furious with herself. Brenly lowered her voice, but I could still hear. You like him? Fine. He is charming, rich, and clearly complicated. Don't confuse intensity with reliability, Elowen answered. I know what he is. Brenly came to the doorway. If you hurt her, money won't make the next dinner comfortable. Understood. Brenly's warning left the door barely open. I left before she decided to close it with me still inside. After the move, the university assigned Emery Bexley to set up my entrepreneurship office. She was a campus broadcaster with frightening organizational speed. I arrived to find the furniture assembled, applications sorted, and a promotion calendar already on the wall. A temporary sign on the door identified the entrepreneurship office, and 3 students were already waiting for application details. You did this in one day? I asked. Emery checked her list. 6 admirers carried the furniture. Their motives were inefficient, their arms were useful. She handed me a schedule with every task assigned. One student asked Emery when the investor would arrive. She pointed at me without looking up. The student's mouth opened, closed, and then produced a very polite hello. Emery's work had created status before I spoke. Competence first, appearance second. That combination was getting expensive. Her long-term lunchbox admirer arrived with food and tried to turn delivery into a date. Emery handed the bag back. I told you no last week. The answer didn't expire. He placed it on her desk anyway and told me they had history. History includes rejected applications, Emery replied. He left only after I stood beside her and asked him to respect the answer. The rejection hurt his pride, but he still had not fully learned. Then Kaya walked in. She saw Emery beside me, saw the lunch bag, and chose public force. Kaya wrapped both arms around mine. There you are, boyfriend. She kissed me in front of Emery and the students waiting outside the office. One student whispered that the anonymous investor already had a campus broadcaster. Another corrected her and pointed at Kaya. Emery picked up her clipboard. Should I add relationship disputes to the office schedule? Recurring meeting, I said. Kaya tightened her grip. Cancelled! Emery left with a small smile. Kaya watched until she disappeared down the hall. That evening, Sailor messaged the sports car choice and hinted at hotel outfits. Kaya wanted dinner. Then, Elowen invited me to the sisters' apartment. I chose Elowen's dinner. At the apartment, she stole one kitchen kiss before Brenly entered with plates. Brenly had a campus gossip thread open beside her plate. It had my ex, my girlfriend, the cafe manager, and the trainer arranged like a conspiracy board. She asked about my parents first, then worked down the list. She asked what happened to the women if my money vanished again. I answered that the cafe, Odette's home, and every gift remained theirs. She asked what happened if my attention vanished. That answer had no contract. Eloan stopped touching her food. Brenly had asked the one question Eloan feared. How many women are involved? Brenly asked. That depends on the verb. Eloan kicked me under the table. Brenly did not smile. This is the part where charm becomes an avoidance strategy. Fair. I put down my fork and answered properly. I protected the private details, then admitted the relationships were complicated and that I'd made no exclusivity promise. Brenly watched for a lie. Eloan watched for cowardice. Neither found one. When I left, Brenly gave me a warning instead of a ban. She no longer barred the door even if she kept one hand on it. Odette texted before I reached the M9 and asked me to come over. I thought the old dealership uniform would be the next problem. Before dawn, her family would turn a phone call into a medical emergency. After Brenly's dinner, I went straight to Odette's apartment. The next problem was waiting in her old dealership uniform. My concentration failed before she said a word. Manager off duty, she warned. The uniform filed an appeal. Odette caught me looking. You heard nothing, I said. I heard manager off duty. The rest lost to the uniform. She smiled, pulled me inside by the tie, and made her choice clear. The uniform won its appeal. By morning, Odette's affinity reached 90. The perfect life system opened her randomized bundle. The choice was clean, cash, or one paired ability package with a practical combat skill and a limited restorative skill. I took the pair, money already multiplied. Those abilities might matter when a card couldn't. The system confirmed them and refused a demonstration. Very generous. Congratulations, Odette murmured from the bed. You look like you won an argument with invisible furniture. The furniture lost badly. Then my phone rang. Odette's mother was crying. Her father had supposedly suffered a heart attack, and the family needed money immediately. Every joke stopped. Odette dropped one shoe while dressing. Her hands shook so hard she missed the zipper on her bag. I fastened it for her while she asked which hospital, what symptoms, and whether an ambulance had arrived. Her mother refused to answer clearly and told her to come home first. Odette called her father directly. No answer. She called again. The silence made the lie look like danger. Go, I told her. I'll follow. She kissed my cheek once and ran. Her mother still refused to name a hospital. I could cover the treatment. First, we needed a hospital. Odette gripped my hand once, then drove ahead. I grabbed my wallet and followed. From the M9, I video called Emery. She answered inside the completed entrepreneurship office. The furniture was assembled, the first applications were sorted, and a promotion calendar covered one wall. Family emergency, I told her. Clear my afternoon. Emery moved 3 meetings on screen, reassigned 2 volunteers, and closed the schedule. Done. Drive. The lunchbox admirer appeared in her doorway with food, saw my face, and wisely kept the bag to himself. The M9 covered the distance while I kept the family call on hands-free. Every unanswered ring to Odette's father made the medical story feel worse. An hour later, Odette called from her parents' hallway. I heard teacups, several unfamiliar voices, and her father speaking at full strength. He's fine, Odette told me. Reese Sherwood is here. He's the businessman both families chose for a blind date. They faked the heart attack to trap me at the table. Her father came closer to the phone. We needed you home. You never listen when we discuss marriage. Odette's voice went cold. You let mom tell me you were dying. An older woman called a lie, a harmless push. Reese tried to turn the ambush into a polite introduction. I need you to understand, they used a heart attack as a dinner invitation. Her family had used a fake emergency as a leash. Odette's fear turned into anger while the whole family listened. Odette asked him, did you know they faked a heart attack? Reese paused before answering. I was told you had agreed to meet, her mother cut in. We knew you would refuse if we asked directly. Sit down and give him one dinner. Odette refused to sit. Her father tried to order her phone down, but she kept me on the line. Every relative heard the lie fail in real time before I reached the house. Through the speaker, I heard a chair scrape as she backed away from the table. Reese asked her to sit again. She refused again. Nobody touched the waiting tea. She lowered her voice. Come now. I turned toward the nearest luxury stores. If her family wanted to compare providers, I would bring the comparison through the door. I kept the call open while I filled the M9 with about $45,000 in gifts and drove. Through the speaker, the room started selling Reese. His family praised his business, while Odette's parents listed his home, income, and readiness to marry. Reese told Odette she could keep managing the cafe after marriage, provided it didn't interfere with family duties. She stared at him. You're offering permission over a business you don't own. The older woman called that a practical compromise. Odette's mother asked her to stop being difficult after everybody had gathered for her future. Reese poured himself a tiny glass of expensive liquor. We can discuss details after we get to know each other. Odette's father asked twice why she kept checking the time. I ended the call at the front step and rang the bell. Odette opened the door and exhaled when she saw me. Behind her, a tea service covered the table. Reese's mother sat beside Odette's mother, and an older family friend held a folder of wedding venue photos. Wedding photos covered the table instead of hospital paperwork. I walked in carrying enough gift boxes to require 2 trips from the delivery driver. Odette stepped aside for me and did not ask anyone's permission. The first stack held jewelry and premium food for her parents. The second held practical household gifts and a watch for her father, who looked trapped receiving anything after the fake emergency. Her mother stopped talking. Reese lowered the tiny glass. The older doubter looked from the boxes to my age, then laughed before anyone asked her a question. A delivery driver returned with the final boxes. Reese's mother counted the branded bags. Odette's father moved a chair out of the way himself. Nobody had offered me a seat yet, but they were already making room for my things. I placed the final gift on the table. Odette slipped her hand into mine. Her mother stopped looking at the boxes and stared at our joined hands. "I'm Beau Langley," I said. "Odette's boyfriend." Odette stepped beside me and took my arm. Her mother saw that choice before she looked at the gift boxes. Reese recovered first. "Boyfriend? You're a university student." "Correct," the older woman laughed. "Odette is 27. A young man can play at romance. He can't provide a stable life." I let them keep talking. Odette's mother asked whether the gifts were rented for the entrance. Her father asked what I did for work. Reese mentioned that owning property required more than a flashy vehicle. They built the stage themselves. Odette walked to her bag and removed the contract for the $450,000 home. She placed it in front of her parents. "The home is in my name," she said. "Paid in full by Beau." Her father read the first page. Her mother grabbed the second. Reese leaned over the table and checked the address. Reese traced the paid in full line with one finger. His mother asked whether the square footage was real. Odette answered with the parking space documents and the property agent's contact. Her father sat down slowly. "You own this?" "Yes," Odette answered. "Beau put it in my name. It stays mine." Reese stopped smiling at the word mine. The older woman dismissed it as a document anybody could print. Bad move. I opened my bank app and transferred $150,000 to Odette for furnishing and family support. The alert hit her phone. Odette read the amount aloud once. Her phone displayed the settled transfer. I showed her father the source account, then locked my screen. Nobody was turning the transfer into a ceremony. Her mother's hand froze over the contract. Reese set down the tiny glass so carefully it became comedy. Odette's father checked the transfer and then looked at me as if my age had changed in front of him. Reese's mother stopped touching the wedding folder. The older woman tucked it under a magazine. $150,000? Reese asked. "For decoration," I answered. The older woman counted the digits on Odette's screen. She reached the end and changed her posture. "Mr. Langley," she began, "perhaps we misunderstood the situation." The title upgrade arrived faster than the apology. Reese attempted one last comparison. "A large gift is impressive. Long-term assets matter more." I agreed. Then I mentioned the $1.5 million lakefront villa and the $3 million interior project. Odette's mother sat down. Her father removed his glasses. Reese leaned forward before I finished the sentence. "What industry are you entering?" he asked. "There may be ways our businesses can cooperate." He moved his chair away from Odette and closer to me. His mother followed the shift by closing the wedding folder completely. Odette's mother noticed both movements and finally looked embarrassed. The approved husband candidate had become a man requesting my contact information. Reese offered supplier introductions, property contacts, and a meeting with his partners. 5 minutes earlier, he had been selling himself as Odette's provider. Now he was selling services to me. Odette stared at him. 5 minutes ago, you called Beau a student playing romance." Reese lifted both hands. "I was speaking from incomplete information." "You were speaking from a tiny glass," I said. Her father coughed to hide a laugh. Her mother did not hide hers. The older woman called me Mr. Langley again. Reese's mother folded the wedding photos, slid them under the folder, and asked whether the villa needed suppliers. Odette's mother asked whether the home had space for guests, and Reese's mother suggested everybody remain friends. Odette watched them repaint the trap while she still stood inside it. Odette's grip stayed hard in mine while their voices softened around the villa. I squeezed Odette's hand under the table. She squeezed back, hard. Reese's chair had moved toward me, the wedding folder had vanished under a magazine, and her anger had not disappeared. I turned to Odette's parents. She came because she thought her father was dying. "Don't use that lie again." Her mother started to defend the decision. Odette's father stopped her. "He is right," he said. "We went too far. That apology belonged to Odette, not me." She accepted none of it yet. Reese asked for my number. I gave him a business card from the campus office because watching him accept it with both hands was worth the paper. His mother read the office title over his shoulder and pushed the wedding folder to the far edge of the table. The wedding folder stayed closed. Reese kept my business card, and Odette's parents stopped giving orders in the room where they had staged the trap. Then Odette's mother began discussing where we would live, whether the villa had enough bedrooms, and how often I could visit. Acceptance had arrived too quickly and brought luggage. Footsteps sounded in the hall. A younger woman's voice asked why the whole family was gathered without her. The blind date room had finally stopped attacking me. The next household complication was about to walk through the door. Odette heard the voice, closed her eyes, and whispered, "My sister." Her mother brightened immediately. I had survived the approved husband. Now the family audience was expanding, and every new relative seemed to arrive with questions, expectations, and excellent timing for disaster. The system had issued no family management skill. By breakfast, that omission felt more dangerous than the blind date. Odette's family had accepted me as a walking bank account. Then Fia Corwin walked into the room and called me her future brother-in-law. Fia was Odette's adult younger sister. She had the same sharp eyes, less caution, and the social restraint of a fire alarm. She looked at the gift boxes, the home contract, and Reese sitting farther from Odette than before. "I missed the battle," Fia complained. "You missed a very small glass," I told her. Reese slid the glass behind a bottle. Fia hugged Odette, then leaned around her to inspect me. "Mom said you bought my sister a home." Odette glared at their mother. "That traveled fast." "The transfer was louder," her mother replied. Fia called me future brother-in-law again and asked whether the villa had enough rooms for family visits. Odette's parents immediately began discussing where everyone could stay. Reese angled toward the door. Fia stopped him and asked whether he was the rejected candidate. His mother pretended to study the curtains. Odette covered a smile. "We were introduced socially," Reese corrected. "And socially defeated?" Fia asked. He left without the tiny glass. The blind date trap had turned into a housing committee in under 20 minutes. I left no promises beyond the home Odette already owned. That night, Odette took my hand and led me down the hall. Fia's room sat farther down the same hallway. She heard enough to make breakfast impossible. The next morning, Fia avoided my eyes for exactly 1 minute. Then she clung to Odette's arm and asked whether walls were always that thin. Odette nearly dropped her coffee. Their mother walked in at the exact wrong second and asked what Fia meant. Fia opened her mouth. Odette covered it with a piece of toast. Her father read the newspaper with heroic concentration. I copied the survival tactic with the breakfast menu. "Fia," she warned, "I'm discussing construction quality. I focused on the eggs. Survival sometimes looks like breakfast." Fia kept every question aimed at Odette. I left before breakfast became another family meeting. Back at Brighton State, Emery handed me the first stack of student proposals. The entrepreneurship office looked professional. The ideas looked drunk. Look, one applicant tried to sell premium air in collectible jars. The founder planned coastal, mountain, and motivational editions. I stared at the sample image until Emery asked whether I needed medical help. "How much funding?" I asked. Emery checked the page. $200,000. "For jars?" She turned the file around. "The air is included." A student promoter standing by the door laughed before catching herself. The founder waiting outside heard and walked away with his sample box. That saved us one interview. A third proposal had real customers but terrible margins. I kept that one. Emery tapped the cost sheet. "It loses money on every sale." "Then the founder has customers and a fire. Both can be fixed. Interview, first in line." I marked the file with a green tab. The founder waiting outside saw it through the glass and sat straighter. Weak numbers could be repaired. Imaginary demand required a different religion. Money bought applications. Judgment still had to come from me. Rich idiot remained a live possibility, and Dad needed more than another lucky alert. I rejected the weakest plans and changed the campaign. Applicants needed a real business model and simple financial assumptions. They also had to explain what they would do when the first plan failed. "Put that question first," I told Emery. "What do you do when the first plan fails?" She wrote it across the top of the interview sheet. Emery looked up. "Photos? Basic profiles." Elowen removed my height privilege. A historic loss. She had the deadpan of a tax notice. I liked working with her. Emery cut the committee talk and posted one headline outside the office. $1.5 million available for student ventures. Students stopped to photograph it. A professor asked whether the number was real. Emery handed him the criteria instead of a speech. The office phone rang. A student promoter opened the door, saw the forming crowd, and froze. Emery gave her two colored signs and split the line into applicants and gossip hunters. The gossip hunters received a flyer and no names. She had turned the hallway into a queue before I finished the next proposal. One serious applicant opened the criteria on the spot and started rewriting his numbers instead of asking who I was. While we rebuilt the campaign, Sailor called from Shane's office. He had invented another complaint and threatened to remove her classes. I could hear him behind her. "You keep leaving with clients," Shane snapped. "This gym built your reputation. Without my schedule, you'll have no income." Sailor put the call on speaker. "Beau, How much would you pay for a personal coach? Enough that you stop using a manager who manufactures complaints. Shane stepped closer to the phone. This is an employment matter. Then employ her properly. He told Sailor to end the call and choose between her job and whatever arrangement she had with me. The receptionist asked Shane whether the complaint came from a real client. He snapped that management did not owe staff explanations. A trainer near the door raised his phone. Shane now had witnesses and still chose to keep digging. Sailor smiled. I could hear it. I quit, she said. Shane kept talking for several seconds because his brain had not received the update. He warned about references, unpaid commissions, and the clients she would lose. Sailor removed her locker key and placed it beside the badge. Keep the clients who want your lies. The rest have my number. One woman training nearby raised her hand. I do! Another client nodded. Shane's audience began choosing before Sailor reached the front desk. At the front desk, Sailor placed her badge beside the signed schedule proving his last complaint was fake. The receptionist read it. 2 trainers stopped their sessions. Shane warned that she would come back once the bills arrived. Then my M9 pulled up outside. I had sent a driver because I was still at the office. Sailor walked through the gym carrying her bag while clients watched. The driver opened the rear door and asked where she wanted to go. One trainer whispered that she had already found private work. The client who had raised her hand followed Sailor out and asked for her new schedule. The receptionist removed Sailor's name from Shane's disciplinary sheet and slid it into the trash. Shane watched his client list move before Sailor reached the curb. He stopped talking about bills. Sailor video called me from the back seat. Personal coach, private schedule, better pay. Do I receive a trial period? Sailor answered. You receive suffering. Competitive package. She accepted the role. The driver heard the agreement and asked where to deliver her training equipment. That evening, I arrived late to the private gym suite she had reserved. Sailor wore training clothes and a severe expression. 20 minutes late, she announced. I pointed at my phone. My office had applicants. Sailor pointed at me. Your body has complaints. She tried the old push-pull game and told me I might have to earn forgiveness. I closed the distance. Are we training or negotiating? Sailor looked at me, made her choice clear, and kissed me. We spent private time together before the workout plan began. Afterward, she measured my weight and body composition. I checked the mirror first. I looked fine. The system panel disagreed with the confidence. Starting point, about 154 pounds at 21% body fat. Target, 165 pounds at 12% body fat. Deadline, 30 days. Reward, 2 years of perfect physique maintenance. I looked at the mirror again. The panel is a hater. Sailor pinched my side. The panel has evidence. The fitness mission required real training and diet. Cashback could not lift the weights. This was my first system reward with sweat attached. Sailor built a simple plan. Strength work. Enough food to gain useful weight. No disappearing for 3 days because a woman invited me somewhere. That last rule feels targeted, I said. Your schedule is a public health issue. The next morning, she arrived at my dorm with meal containers, training gear, and 0 patience. Toby opened the door, saw Sailor, and immediately stood straighter. Is Beau in trouble? He asked. Physically, she answered. Scott looked at the food. Can his roommates receive collateral nutrition? Earn it. At the main gym, Sailor put me through the first public session. She corrected my stance, added weight, and refused every excuse. The first set looked easy until the 6th repetition. My arms began negotiating. Sailor added another plate. You're trying to kill the investor, I told her. I'm building the husband. The investor talks too much. Toby, who had followed for free nutrition, laughed from a bench. Sailor made him hold the timer. His entertainment became unpaid labor. Heads turned when the trainer who had just quit Shane's schedule started correcting me by name. A former client paused beside the squat rack. Another trainer watched Sailor adjust the bar and then checked the M9 through the window. Shane stood behind the office glass, pretending paperwork mattered more. 2 hours later, I completed the final set with clean form. The last repetition moved slowly enough for half the gym to watch it happen. I locked my arms and finished without Sailor touching the bar. The former client near the rack applauded once. Toby stopped the timer and announced a personal record. Shane looked through the office glass, saw his former trainer building a crowd around me, and closed the blinds. Sailor slapped the bench. Good. Again tomorrow. You said good. I heard affection. You heard oxygen deprivation. Her affinity climbed toward 88. Then she wiped the sweat from my forehead with her towel. She called me husband loudly enough for the nearby trainers to hear. One client looked from her to me. Another checked Shane's office. My arms hurt. My pride survived. The mission clock had started. This system reward came with a deadline money couldn't brute force. I had to eat, train, sleep, and return while every other part of my life tried to steal the schedule. Sailor handed me the next day's meal plan. Miss 1 session and I move into the village gym. Threat or reward? Motivation. Near the exit, an older gym status chaser watched Sailor beside me. He wore a designer tracksuit, checked the M9 before checking my face, and held his phone like a receipt. The screen showed a campus post with Kaya on my arm. He looked from the photo to Sailor and smiled like he'd found a weapon. The only question was how loudly Sailor would answer. The older gym status chaser approached Sailor like he carried a nuclear secret. His secret was that I dated other women. He acted like Sailor had never heard the names Kaya or Odette. He waited until I finished a set, then stepped between us near the gym exit. Several members slowed down to listen. "Sailor," he began, "you should know what kind of man you're defending." She handed me a towel. "This should be efficient." The rival pointed at me. "He has other women. The cafe manager. The campus girl. Probably more. He is using you." He listed the M9, the cafe, and the house as if he had assembled a criminal case. The campus posts had given him names, vehicles, and property. He presented all three like fresh evidence. "You know the ending he was trying to force. Sailor did too. He buys women things and moves on," the rival continued. "Once he gets bored, you'll be standing here without a job." He let the accusation hang and looked around for support. A trainer near the desk stopped adjusting weights. Two clients exchanged glances. Shane opened his office blinds. One of Sailor's former clients stepped closer because the job insult involved her too. The older man noticed the audience and raised his voice. He wanted the room to hear the part where Sailor was supposed to feel ashamed. He had chosen a public floor where everyone had watched Sailor resign and return with private work. His witnesses already knew she had chosen this. She wiped the sweat from my forehead. "I know about the other women," Sailor said. "His money is his. His choices are his. I stay because I choose to." The rival's smile disappeared. He tried again. "You can't be serious." Sailor slipped one arm around mine. "I'm serious enough to call him husband." "You're serious enough to interrupt training with old gossip?" One client laughed. The trainer at the desk looked away to hide hers. Shane closed the blinds again. The rival raised his voice and accused her of choosing money over self-respect. Sailor stepped closer. "You tried to buy my attention with contempt. He offered me work, a car, and the truth. Which part bothers you most?" The former client beside us nodded. The trainer at the desk folded her arms. Even Shane stayed behind the glass. Stepping out would have reminded everyone why Sailor had quit. The rival turned to me. "You think money makes this acceptable?" "Sailor already answered you," I said. "Listen before the next humiliation." He looked back at her, hoping for hesitation. She tightened her arm around mine instead. He had no second move. Sailor handed me the towel. "Finish the session, husband." The rival walked away while the gym watched him carry the secret nobody wanted. One client moved aside without giving him the courtesy of eye contact. Shane closed the blinds before the man reached the door. I completed another 2 hours with clean form. Sailor increased the weight, corrected my breathing, and refused to let the drama shorten the plan. The rival's interruption had burned 10 minutes. Sailor added them back at the end. Petty coaching remained coaching. "He leaves and I suffer?" I asked. "His mistake became your conditioning. Life is educational." On the final set, the trainer who had laughed counted the repetitions. A former client clapped when I locked out the last one. Toby recorded the time and announced that I had beaten yesterday by 12 seconds. Sailor checked my numbers and raised one eyebrow. She compared the time with yesterday, then checked my form notes again. "You learn fast," she admitted. "Say brilliant. Don't become greedy during oxygen debt." Her affinity reached about 88, still below 90. The next bundle remained open. After training, I went to the entrepreneurship office. Emery's long-term lunchbox admirer was already there with another meal and a new excuse to stay. He had ignored her direct rejection, followed her into the office, and started explaining their history to 2 student volunteers. He told them he had supported Emery for years, as if accumulated favors created ownership. One volunteer looked uncomfortable. The other stepped beside Emery's desk. Emery did not look up from the campaign draft. "I didn't ask you to come." The admirer opened the lunch bag and arranged containers across her paperwork. "You forget to eat. Someone has to take care of you." Emery picked up one container, placed it back in the bag, and zipped it closed. "Care that requires access after rejection is pressure. Take it home." He smiled at the volunteers as if she were being difficult. That smile made the room choose sides. He placed the lunch on her desk. "You skip meals when you work. I'm helping. Help that ignores my no is maintenance for your ego." The volunteers became fascinated by their laptops. I reviewed the campaign. The week first pool meant the full amount had to become public, $1.5 million available for student ventures. Emery pushed the headline to one campus screen. Students stopped to photograph it, and the office phone started ringing. A volunteer answered the first line and immediately looked overwhelmed. Emery opened a second line, handed her a 3-sentence response card, and split the crowd into applicants and gossip hunters. The admirer reached for the edge of her paperwork. Emery moved the folder away without breaking the call. He had brought lunch into her office and still could not get 1 inch of control. I offered her a $5,000 monthly salary after graduation if she kept running operations at this level. One volunteer stopped typing. The other looked from the crowd to Emery, as if the job title had just appeared before the paperwork. Emery finally looked up. Is that a formal offer? It becomes one when you accept, the admirer cut in. Emery already has plans after graduation. She turned toward him. You are not one of them. He still refused to leave. Emery looked at me, then at the students outside the glass office wall. I need a boyfriend for 30 seconds. Do you consent? Aggressive interview process, I said. Yes. She stepped close, took my hand, and pressed it against her waist. Then she kissed the side of my neck hard enough to leave a visible mark. The admirer went pale. Emery leaned against me. This is my boyfriend! Stop bringing food. Stop following me. He looked at the mark, the way I held her, and the two volunteers watching through the glass. Since when? He asked. Emery answered without blinking. Since your answer stopped being relevant. He looked toward me for a challenge. I gave him none. He had ignored Emery's words, and now two volunteers were watching him ignore them again. Then he picked up the lunch bag and left. One volunteer closed the office door behind him. The other turned back to her screen and announced that applications had doubled. A student outside whispered that the investor and the broadcaster were dating. Emery wrote rumor control on the board and underlined later. Emery straightened my collar. 30 seconds. You're terrifyingly exact. Emery tapped the offer sheet. About the salary? Still 5,000. Emery accepted the post-graduation offer and returned to work as if the fake relationship display had been another calendar item. The perfect life system chose that moment to insult me. Current capital growth exceeded business competence. The new mission required 1 month of real business administration study, with a university-level mastery package only after completion. The system had watched me reject premium air and decided I was still the risk. Rude and deserved. I closed the last week proposal and opened DeLowen's contact. Money had bought me the seat, I still needed the brain to keep it. The learning mission required genuine study before the mastery reward. I could not buy a textbook for Elowen and collect knowledge through Cashback. The cheat demanded the boring part, 30 days of actual study. I had money, an office, a campaign, and people ready to apply. I needed enough knowledge to recognize the talented ones before the loud ones took the seats. Emery read the problem from my face. You need a tutor. I need several years compressed into 1 month. Start with one professor and less drama. Cruel, accurate advice. Hadley invited me for drinks that evening. Her divorce situation remained dangerous, and the earlier kiss still sat between us. I declined because I had work and training. She accepted the answer, then asked me to call when I had time. Hadley's name stayed in my phone. I opened Elowen's contact instead. Kaya arrived at my dorm before I could contact Elowen. She had seen the campus campaign and heard women searching for the anonymous investor. Kaya closed the door behind her and held up one screenshot. The post called him an older billionaire, listed Zayn as a possibility, and ranked funding versus dating as flexible. Don't let them discover it's you through another woman, Kaya said. She had replied to nobody. Possessiveness apparently came with archival services. Kaya sat on the edge of my desk. I asked for your time, Beau. Every week, another woman gets a key, a title, or a car. Then ask for the part you want. I want you to stop making me compete with rumors. I told her she could protect the secret as long as she wanted. Then I promised to buy her a home too. Kaya stared at me. You heard the time part and answered with property. I heard both. Her affinity jumped. The number stopped near 93. Kaya saw only my smile. Did your coins approve? She asked. They support housing. I asked for time, she reminded me. You can have both. The system enjoys overcommitment. Kaya narrowed her eyes. Your cryptocurrency? It has moved into real estate. She kissed me, then took my phone and blocked the campus gossip thread for the night. She stayed until morning, and her affinity held near 93. The house promise had moved the number. Her demand for time remained. 100 still waited above us like an unopened door. By sunrise, Kaya and I were at the cafe when two women debated the investor. One guessed a retired banker. The other guessed Zayn because of his car. Zayn walked in, heard his name, and straightened. One woman asked whether he controlled the fund. Before he could answer, the lead barista placed my signed owner report on Odette's counter. Zayn saw Kaya watching him and chose a table instead of a lie. Tiny, frightened growth. Kaya told the women the investor probably preferred applicants who read the rules before chasing him. Odette handed them Emery's criteria sheet, and both women opened it instead of asking another question. I called Elowen. I need business tutoring, I told her. Real basics, accounting, management, investment analysis. She was quiet for one beat. You're finally admitting you don't know everything. Record the date. Come over this afternoon. Bring a notebook. I bought the notebook with my own money and received no system alert. That felt suspiciously normal. That afternoon, I reached Elowen's apartment with the notebook in my hand. She opened the door, glanced at it, and raised one eyebrow. The apartment felt unusually quiet. Brenly was gone for the afternoon. Aloan held the door wider. No bag, no water excuse, no moving boxes, just study. For once I was there to study.